Welcome, everyone, to Davos Fingers, episode 149, Stronger Stuff Than Glass. This is Scad, and with me, as always, is my buddy Matt.
Hey, everybody. This episode's going to cover chapters 65 through 69. The names of those chapters are Spark through Wind or Women's Fancy. Scad, we're like 70% of the way through the book. I just looked at my little indicator on my Kindle reading tablet thing. Said 70%. So, it's only taken us a few episodes.
Yeah.
To hit 3/4.
Not too bad, though. We're going through it at a pretty good clip, I think.
It's been fun. I wouldn't want to move any faster through it because we'd miss something.
Yes. I like the pace. We're at.
Yeah.
It's 40 pages per.
Yeah, and we get some great stuff. Kvothe has another magical night. This is the night. What a beautiful night. Although he got less action than the dogs on Lady and the Tramp.
Lady and the Tramp, for sure.
Yeah.
And fewer meatballs, I'm guessing.
He's low on cash. They can afford bread. That's it. Strawberry wine. More on that later. A magical night with Denna, wherein they confess that they, shocker, remember each other. Also in this episode, Kvothe plays the hero and rescues a friend. He gains a cloak, but may have lost Denna. Oh, and his life is threatened. MBD.
It's a minor event.
Yeah.
As always, we are spoiler free for the King Killer Chronicle until the end of the podcast for a special segment we call Devi After Dark. So that means we will not spoil future content from this book or A Wise Man's Fear or Lightning Tree or anything else in this series. The main portion of the podcast will be clear of those types of spoilers. So enjoy that.
Always and forever. That's how we roll. Also, how we roll is we love to hear from you guys. So reach out to us via email at wearedavosfingers@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter and at Blue Sky. Handle at both of those is at Davos Fingers. We are there on Facebook. You can find us there. And you can check out our Patreon program at patreon.com/DavosFingers.
That's right. And we're about to jump into the episode here, but I did want to bring up, this is something that released today from Pat, 2 days ago from Pat as of our recording date. It's The Narrow Road Between Desires, a King Killer Chronicle novella. Now, this has spurred some angst from people, much like anytime George releases something else, even when it's just something he's edited.
Why aren't you working on what I want to?
Precisely. Now, Matt and I don't really go in for much of that kind of talk. We understand the frustration, but, a man's life is a man's life. Regardless, Pat has taken The Lightning Tree, which is a short story about Bass that you can find in the Rogues anthology. That is a collection of short stories, and I own it. Quite good. Lots of really good authors. Neil Gaiman, I think, is in there. Lots of really good authors in there. But Pat wrote a story called The Lightning Tree, and that came out roughly 2014, I believe. He has rewritten it to a degree, expanded it. It's much larger, and provided illustrations from a fantastic illustrator whose name I've now misplaced. It's called The Narrow Road Between Desires. I have not picked it up. I'm interested in your thoughts, Matt, but I am kind of one of those guys that doesn't really like it when authors and musicians repackage stuff they've already had people buy. So I'm not gonna buy it, but it sounds, from what I've read, like it's a really well expanded version of this story that gets much more into Bast and some of the Fae stuff and storytelling to address that story. So if you're interested, or if you're dying for something to go pick up and you just miss past language, go check it out, or get The Lightning Thief if you want, from the Rogues.
Lightning Tree?
The Lightning Tree.
Also, Lightning Thief, Percy Jackson is a lot of fun.
Yes. Yeah. The Lightning Tree, in that Rogues anthology. Anyway, it just new-ish stuff out, and I just wanted to bring it up since we're covering the author here, and let people know that that's there.
That's awesome. I hadn't seen that.
Yeah, it released Tuesday or Wednesday. Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, new content.
newish, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I brought it up because I know you're a big Dave Matthews fan, and I know it's all live performances, so it's not repackaged, but they do a lot of that, right? Where they're kind of selling,
Yeah.
like live versions of things that people, you've probably got 20 versions of Jimmy thing somewhere.
More. Yeah.
Yeah.
They do a live tracks series, it's called. They put out a few a year. Let me see what Live Tracks is up to in Dave Matthews Band. They just put out, a show that's really good because all of their shows are so unique, right? Each show
Yeah.
has a unique set list, and each time they're jamming on different songs, they sound different. Let's see. I think they're up to 64 live tracks albums. Those are
Yeah.
unique albums that they've
Right.
put out. So,
Right.
and that's in addition to they do like other release live albums like Live at Central Park or something like that.
So you might
And
want to think of it like
studio
that.
albums. Yeah.
The structure of the story is the same, but it's different.
He's
And
riffed on different,
yeah,
parts of the songs or yeah.
exactly. Right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Anyway, let's dive in. Should we dive in?
I'd be happy to.
Okay. My chapter, Spark. Kvothe takes Will and Sim to the Aeolian to celebrate being promoted to journeyman artificer, using his credits at the Aeolian to provide a whole bottle of scutton to mark the occasion. They discuss Kvothe's banishment from the archives yet again, with Will agonizing that he can't just let Kvothe in before settling in on plotting the downfall of Ambrose Jackus some more. It seems they are ready for a good night of friendly drinking when Denna appears. First time that Will and Sim have seen Denna, and they are floored by her beauty. She admits she was hoping to find Kvothe unentangled so she could have his company, but wouldn't dare pry him away from his friends. Kvothe searches frantically for an excuse to leave them to spend time with Denna, but he needn't have bothered. Sim and Will quickly intimate that they'd rather not have him around anyway. Will indicating that Kvothe will drink all the booze, and Sim that Kvothe will sulk for days if he misses the chance to hang out with Denna anyway. She whisks Kvothe out of the Aeolian through the stairs, throughout the stares of other jealous men, and a look of pity from Diok. They eat bread and drink strawberry wine in a local park. It was a beautiful autumn night, and they delighted in it and in each other's company. Talk about everything and nothing, and to distract himself from paying her compliments, Kvothe tells her that a professor at the university claims that there are 7 words that would make a woman love you. She indicates that he shouldn't bother wondering. He said them he said those words to her the first time they met. I was just wondering why you're here, he had said. While having perhaps many indications, this phrase at the very least clues Kvothe into the fact that Denna did in fact remember him. They squabble over who remembered who and why they might forget, and Denna affirms that she'd rather he call her Denna in private instead of her other names, as it sounds different when you say it. Gentle. They flirt some more, and Kvothe asks if she could give him a hint where and when to come look for her tomorrow. Denna is stunned by how cautious he is, how carefully he steps around her, and sets a date with Kvothe for the Aeolian tomorrow at noon. They danced a careful dance around each other the rest of the night, feeling each other out and neither being too bold before the night closes. Kvothe returns to the Aeolian, where Diok tries to, seemingly, from a place of concern, not a place of competition, warn Kvothe about Denna. She is a spark that he can't hold, and she will break his heart, Diok warns. But Kvothe reassures him that his heart is made of stronger stuff, as he brushes the warning aside and looks forward to his date. That's the end of the chapter.
And a fun chapter it was. How
Indeed.
about can we just give some mad props to Will and Sim? Just
Wingman.
Immediately, without a thought, wingman that kid onto glory.
Yeah, it took them all of 1 second to figure out the situation and process it appropriately, and send their friend out on the way. Wingman A+ grade.
And they did it, unawkwardly with some humor. They said,
yes.
She said, I'd feel guilty about stealing you away from your friends. And Will says, you're making the assumption that we want him here. You'd do us a favor if you took him away.
Yeah.
And it went on for a minute, but just
yes.
Good job, fellas. Good job.
And yes, and Willem, Denna very shortly after that calls him a stone in deep water. And his matter-of-fact way of saying things like that is
Mhm.
just so perfect. You're assuming we want him here at all.
Yeah.
There's like I imagine that's the delivery. It's nothing over exuberant. It's nothing too convincing. It's just like you're assuming we want him here at all.
He's like, oh.
I don't mean him to sound like Eeyore necessarily, but like he's
No.
just dry
Yeah.
and deadpan without the intent of getting humor out of it, but also like deeply intelligent and we and full of wisdom in some way. I love
And it
Will.
ends up being kind of funny.
Yes, and it ends up being funny to everyone else. Yes.
He's like Nate Bargatze, the comedian that I'm in love with currently. Just that dry delivery,
I don't know whether
almost
you'll
like it
like to hear
shouldn't be
this or not, but
funny,
my
but
parents love that guy.
he's flying high right now, dude. He
Yeah,
hosted Saturday Night Live.
yeah, did he?
He's
Yeah,
yeah, he's doing well. He's
yeah.
riding this coattail. Not riding coattails. No, he's riding this
He's creating a coattail for someone else to
riding
ride.
this. Yeah, for sure.
Riding the
Yeah.
storm out.
Just
Riding,
riding this thing. Riding something.
riding,
Wave. That's what I'm trying to say. He's
riding,
riding a wave.
riding the
Riding a
wave.
wave.
The
Yep.
Crimson Wave. I was riding the
Woof.
Crimson Wave.
I hope so.
Assume you're talking about ladies' troubles, and so I will take off those two absences. It's a little clueless for you, Matt.
Oh my gosh. Oh man. Another
Didn't expect
reference.
to whip out the clueless tonight.
Nope, didn't. You probably won't expect this either. Maybe you have, Scad. Strawberry Wine, the song.
I almost sung it. I held back
My
because I
man.
knew it would not be
My
appreciated.
man.
Yeah,
Oh, I actually dig
Dina
that song.
Carter.
I
Dina
actually
Carter,
dig
right?
that song. Yeah, it's a beautiful song.
Yeah, but it ran too long. If you want to have a hit, you got to make it fit. So you cut it down to
Into
305.
305. Scatty, Billy Joel, my man.
I'm coming in hot tonight. Uh,
Dude, you've done your homework. Um,
Dina Carter has that album specifically has a very special place in like my own little dumb
oh,
romantic history.
tell me.
I mean, it's not. It's mostly it's just centered around a road trip I took with a couple female friends, and they were super into that album at the time, and we listened to it quite a
Good
bit.
album.
Yeah, and I ended up kind of like I mean, I don't like country really at all, but I ended up it's very poppy country, and I kind of got into it.
Mm-hmm. Great
The way
name, great title to the album, right? Did I shave my
Straw.
legs for this?
Did I shave my legs for this? That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of good songs on there. I feel like I oversold how important a piece of my life it was at the beginning, and then telling the story, it fell a little flat.
Oh, that's sweet. It's got memories attached to it, and that's the best part
Very
of
much.
music is
Yeah.
you hear those songs and it very poignantly brings back those memories.
And we danced anyway.
I'm
That's
glad
one of the songs. And we danced anyway.
we danced
Right?
anyway. I don't know the album super well.
I think it is.
We danced anyway. Track 2.
Mm.
Yep.
So I told
Love
you.
Ain't Worth Making. Before We Ever Heard Goodbye. Both of those are good songs.
Mm.
I was thinking there's another. She's got another song, but it must be on a different album called "You Still Shake Me." That's really good.
Mm.
It must be on a
I
different.
mean,
one.
only with consent, everyone. Only with consent.
Always.
I
think old Rothfuss, he likes this song. I think this was a reference because it just fits so perfectly.
So
Strawberry Wine,
Drop an email.
17, the Hot July Moon. Now this was September, but the Hot July Moon, Saw Everything. My First Taste of Love, oh, was bittersweet.
Yeah.
The Green on the Wine, like strawberry wine. Green on the Vine, like
Green on the Vine.
Yeah.
He is. Now he's 15 still, right? So a little
He's younger. Yeah, but I mean, teenage.
We don't know, but definitely not her first. Well, we don't know if she's in love with him or not. We're pretty sure he's in love with her. I'm not sure we'll talk about this a lot more later in this episode, I think. I'm not sure
I hope so.
I'm not sure she's the I don't want to say she's not the loving type, but maybe that she's protective enough of herself that she doesn't let it happen.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, we'll come back to some of that.
Well, can we come to some of it now?
Sure.
I mean, in terms of signs, I didn't get a lot of signs when I didn't get a lot of girls expressing interest in me when I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'm completely off base, but saying things like, I'd miss the sound of your voice, or from that moment, I was yours, right?
Yes.
I'm the one that came looking for you twice. There's a couple instances of touching his arm, touching his hand. I don't know, man. I feel like maybe she's putting out some signals, but
I agree. I totally agree. I've never known a man to be so careful. Thing is a huge thing to me about, forget the flirtation, just about like she's being, it seems, very direct
yeah,
about letting him know he can be a little less careful.
right. Dude.
Like a nice touch on the arm is nice, but like he's clearly being careful. She determines that it's on purpose. And she tells him, she literally gives him I don't know if she said I'd rather, but like, I'd rather you sped up a little bit.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
it's okay. You can put
Uh-huh.
your arm around me, and she didn't say that directly, but like she's clearly giving him signs that he can move on. Now, why she's doing that, again, maybe she
Later.
just
Yeah.
wants him to fall and she's manipulating him. We don't, there's lots, who knows. But I agree with you. She's certainly giving him signs that
Right.
indicate that this is not a one-way thing.
Love to hear this from her perspective, right? Like
Yeah,
what is going
for
through
sure.
Denna's head? This needs
Yeah.
the oof. No, I'm not. That's really bad to say. I should not say this, but I've already gone there. I found out recently that the author of Twilight, because she's got to bleed every ounce of every cent out of that book series that she can,
Yeah.
rewrote the series apparently
Mm-hmm.
from the opposite perspective.
Yeah.
Right. So Twilight is from the
Bella's perspective.
Bella's
Yeah, I know her
perspective.
name. Give me a break.
She apparently rewrote the whole series, or maybe just the first book. I don't know.
On
Sounds like you
purpose.
might know more than I do.
I don't. Not up. I didn't know about this.
At least one of the books rewrote it from the vampire's perspective.
Well, she's missing the werewolf perspective. This is we got a
That's
three-fer
coming
over here.
next. That's
It's got
coming.
to be next.
Give it a minute. Let her get
Yeah.
through these next four or whatever through the vampire's perspective. Then she'll go through the werewolf
Yeah.
perspective. So
You know,
we need that. We need that. We need Rothfuss to rewrite this book from Denna's.
you know what? I don't know if I want the whole book, but
Would parts?
would I hate a novella or a short story or something that gave just these little scenes?
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like I remember George got a lot of love for like something that got published or released that was just the Dany chapters from Game of
Mm-hmm.
Thrones, and like it was held in wide esteem, just those chapters kind of back to back. And I wouldn't hate to see like just this relationship from her perspective, just those
Yeah.
moments and
Yeah.
nothing else. I don't want to hold the whole book rewritten. It's an interesting thing in entertainment genres to do that. What's the Duel that came out, a movie, gosh, I don't know, 2 years ago maybe, had Matt Damon and no, Matt Damon, yeah, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Kylo Ren. Help me
Adam
out.
Driver.
Adam Driver, I think, if I'm remembering all the people in it, and a fantastic, I believe, French actress whose name I've now lost. But that story was the same thing told from the different perspectives. I think that can be very powerful in literature as separate books. A little bit of overkill. I
Yeah.
feel like I feel like maybe I agree with your Twilight assessment of milking it.
Mm-hmm. It would be interesting.
Yeah. It's
It would
really
be
only
positive.
it's really only interesting if the events have some level of real intrigue or sauce to them that might your question.
Yeah.
It's only interesting in this perspective because we have reason to believe Denna is not in that place, right?
Yeah. It would almost be more interesting if we knew what the ending was. Like maybe
Yeah,
the fact that
to
Stephanie
see how they
Meyer
got there.
finished the whole books
Hmm.
first before she went back and did the vampire perspective. That would be interesting here. If we, there's so much mystery surrounding Denna. It'd be interesting to go back after we
Yeah,
know her whole story,
sure.
go back and see what she's
And see
doing
it.
here. If it's
Yeah,
sincere, if it's part of a plan, if it's, I don't know.
yeah. Did you notice that after Kvothe says there are 7 words that would make a woman love you,
Mm.
Denna's next several, I think it's 6 sentences, all have 7 words in them?
Did you figure that out yourself?
I counted it. Yeah.
Yeah,
The first one I just looked, I'm like, that looks like 7 words. And I counted, I'm like, there's no way Pat
dude,
did this as like a device. And he did. I mean, I don't know if he
dude,
did it on purpose, but it seems like he did it on purpose, which is
dude.
to me, another little hint that he's trying to give the reader, that like she's trying to use that on
Yeah,
him.
totally.
Yeah. I think it was the next 6 sentences. I forgot to write it down.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Huh. That's really cool, man. I like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, they're not most of them are not profound sentences. They're just
Sure.
silly sentences, but they're 7 words.
He's got such a way with words. I wouldn't be surprised if that's very intentional.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. It's more like the thing that makes me think it's unintentional is when he stopped doing it, there wasn't like a key break or shift in the narrative or anything that like showed that he should have stopped trying the pattern. It just kind of stopped. And so I was like, oh, maybe it's nothing. But
Mhm.
6 is a big number, if that's indeed what it was. It might be 4. Anyway.
Well, this
Did
whole
you
idea of dancing around each other
Hmm.
is very apparent. We find out all along that she remembered him. Of course she remembered him.
Yeah,
Of course she remembered him. But that's nice.
totally. Yeah, it's nice. And of course he remembers her. And it's always silly when you hear these things and you're like, oh, well, I just doubt it. I don't know why. Like it was a special moment for you in the caravan. It was probably a special moment for her too.
For sure.
It's rare that you miss the mark that badly, where it was like this life-changing thing for you and the other person didn't care at all.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They had their whole nice walk where I supplied a whole playlist for them.
That's right. You did indeed. You did indeed. Uh
Sorry, you were going to say something.
it was it's a dumb thing. It's back at the beginning of the chapter where he's explaining the fake drink thing. Have you ever heard of this before?
Yeah, no, I hadn't heard of it. Yes, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You're a musician. I wondered if it was something that like you'd heard of, like, yeah, people buy drinks for you and you don't want to drink, so
Yeah, no one's ever bought me a drink.
I'll buy you a
That's
drink.
not true.
That's right. A drink you definitely didn't want. Okay, the only thing I had really is pressuring them to get him into the library. Um, it was only a little bit of light pressure to get Will to let him into the archives.
Uh-huh.
And Will's just kind of like, oh, I can't. It's just too many people know you, and I get
Stakes are too
expelled.
high.
It'd be bad.
Yeah,
And so I wonder if maybe that whole interaction is meant to just show us how good a friend Will is for even thinking about it, because he has agonized
sure.
over it a little bit. And also maybe just one more little reminder for us all of how big a deal it is to be banned. It's a big deal.
Like it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Like ever.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I have there. You have anything else in this chapter?
I do have this little note, but I think I'll save it till Debbie After Dark now that I think about it. So
Okay. There was one reference to the willow bending in the wind again. You remember when she asked him to when they asked each other to define what they were, and
right, yeah.
he called him like a willow bending to the wind. You get something similar here as she's coming, bending like a willow. And then it shows up again later in these chapters. I didn't put the page down.
She stood with emotion as they're leaving the Aeolian,
yes.
Taking their leave of Sim and Will. She stood with emotion like a willow wand bending to the wind and offered me her hand. I took it.
Right. So interesting. Now he's the wind and she's the one bending. Yes. Whereas before it
bending
seemed like
to the wind.
And he was the willow before bending to her, maybe, right?
Very thoughtful.
It's it's maybe just another one of those little hints of like they're kind of the same for each other.
Yeah. And this dance they
bend to each other. Yeah.
It's sweet. I love his writing. This chapter was so great. I mean, you paraphrased my favorite line, I think, in it really well. We spoke of everything and nothing, and all the while I could hardly breathe for the nearness of her. The way she moved, the sound of her voice as it touched the autumn air. Like, that's just lovely, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's friggin' lovely.
It is.
I got a 5-song playlist out of that line. Just like, pow. We spoke of everything and nothing, talking all night by Hall & Oates. Hardly breathe, barely breathing by Duncan Sheik. Nearness of her, the nearness of you by Nora Jones. See, I really did it. The way she moved, I like the way you move by Outkast. The sound of her voice, Come On Get Higher by Matt Nathanson. Boom. 5 songs in 1 sentence.
It's a lot. It's a lot. He should farm out his writing skills for musicians, maybe.
There you go. There you go. All right. Want to get to the action?
Volatile, do it. Yeah. You got the action chapter here.
I did. Thank you.
I don't know if you like them or not, but you have it.
I mean, how can you not? This is good stuff. So Kvothe awoke the next morning on the day of his lunch date with Denna, like a kid on Christmas morning, early and restless. So anxious to pass the time and also to parlay his new title as journeyman artificer into some much needed spending money, Kvothe headed in early to the fishery. Going to get some work done. It wasn't as crowded in the mornings, and he figured he could knock out a batch of those lucrative blue light emitters before lunchtime, before he even had to leave to Imre. So he drew the volatile bone tar. Remember, that's that crazy liquid that boils at room temperature and ignites when it comes into contact with air. It's also the primary ingredient for those blue light emitters. So he draws it from its metal container and that's set in the center of the room there. He was slightly concerned to find the container frozen over with a frost around it. The air around it was cold as ice, but the liquid seemed okay. So he proceeded. And he was dialed into getting these emitters done. He was anxious for the distraction, the opportunity to make some money, when he heard a quivering voice behind him. Oh my God. He turned to find the bone tar container leaking from one corner, the dangerous liquid running down the leg of the table the container sat upon, dissolving that table leg. The table gave way, and the frozen container shattered when it hit the floor, sending the substance everywhere. Chaos ensued as the liquid quickly spread across the fishery floor, boiling and then igniting into thick, smoky flame. Through it all, Kvothe spotted his friend Fela trapped among the flames. He thought and acted quickly, using sympathy to burst a large vat of water that was on hand to douse small flames. He completely drenched himself in his prized cloak in the water, then made his way through the flames, through the smoke to Fela. He arrived in enough time to throw her over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes, covering them both in the soaked cloak, and to make a mad dash for the one exit. Then he blacked out. He awoke sometime later in the Medica, and the first thought that came to his mind and out of his mouth was, of course, what time is it? His date with Denna. Oh no, it's already 1 o'clock, an hour after their agreed upon time. Crap, stupid fire. Resigned, Kvothe began to inspect the damage inflicted upon himself. His legs were burned, but numb from some medical treatment. Fela, he learned, had escaped with just some light singeing and bruises, and miraculously, no one had died in the fire at the fishery. Very lucky. But of course, as soon as he was able, Kvothe, barefoot, his one pair of shoes had been lost in the fire, and aching all over from the burns and the bruising, makes his way to Imre to see if by some miracle Denna was still waiting for him at the Aeolian. She wasn't. But Deok was there, and he informed Kvothe that Denna had indeed waited an hour for him before reluctantly leaving with another guy. Ugh. But if it makes Kvothe feel any better, the guy was kind of old. Maybe he looked like kind of a guy that would be like a patron. So I don't know. It didn't make Kvothe feel better. But what did make him feel better was that as he returned back to his spot at anchors, he heard the room excitedly telling stories about his heroics at the fishery that day. Word had spread. And as it turns out, Kvothe was a hero. And that's the end of the chapter.
Yeah. Yeah, you remember we get that nice interlude. Nice. We get an interlude earlier in the book where Kvothe says, if you want to look at a moment that really kind of defined how I became what I ended up being, you can look at that moment. And he's referring to the moment where he did not help the
Mm,
young boy in the alley.
yeah.
And this is perhaps, his first real taste of kind of heroism. Um, and yeah, I think he likes it to some degree. It's a little bit it's a little bit just about building up his reputation, I suppose. But I think he actually likes the reality of it too.
Definitely. Definitely. The people talking about him
Yeah,
is where it seemed to hit, right?
his pride. It's one of his downfalls too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so,
It didn't really hit him. Like he saved Fela's life. He
mhm,
knows he saved her life, running through fire to do so. But all he could think about was Denna and getting to her. And it wasn't until he heard people talking about him in that kind of way that he was like, yep, like that. I
yeah,
like that.
yeah, yeah. And the pride component is that's a dangerous drug too,
Feels
right?
good. Yep. Very.
um, yeah. What did you think of the action sequence?
You know, upon first read, I thought it was his fault.
Oh,
Like
really?
I didn't read closely enough.
Yeah,
And what I imagined was like he didn't like tighten the
the
stopper
old tap.
enough and it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like dripping. The tap was
Uh-huh.
dripping. And but then it wasn't until I didn't detect any guilt or him being like, oh crap, what have I done?
Yeah,
That I was like, wait, did he just not even notice he did it? And I went back and read, and then I saw that it was leaking out of a corner. It sounds like it would have happened regardless.
right.
But uh I thought it was him, like he messed up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess the biggest clue maybe is that it's it was like 2 hours he goes back to work on his stuff between when he got his stuff and when the problem happens. So if he'd left it open, I think it would have happened much quicker. Other than that, you're right. We're just trusting his narration, which we
Mm-hmm.
know is can be flawed. Um,
He's like, it wasn't me. Nope, nope. It was leaking from a corner. I didn't do anything.
we've yeah, he's in denial. Uh, we've noted that he's very quick thinking on the spot.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, lightning fast. I feel like there's a pretty. I've never been drenched by 4,000 pounds of water at once. It says it knocked him back a step.
Dude's
Feels like
got
that.
great center of gravity. Great center of gravity.
I don't know. I just sometimes I wonder with authors like how if they're like nobody will check or whether they go look and Pat's like listening to us right now and being like, you asshole, I spent 6 hours making sure that this amount of water could land on somebody, kind of consecutively, and he'd be okay to go do this. I did it myself, like how I wonder how much they check. But it seemed totally unbelievable to me
Right.
that he would like, I would think that would just knock you over, send you tumbling. It's 500 gallons, Matt.
Was he standing farther away from? And that doesn't feel like it.
I don't know. Yeah, you're right.
It
Maybe I
was
have the
right
wrong
next to
picture in
him.
my head, but I feel it
It
was like
was.
right over top of him and it just fell on him.
He said that he chose the spot he chose because there was that right next
Right.
to him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a good point. My son gets a kick out of watching old Wipeout episodes on Netflix.
Yeah. We've talked about this
And
before. Yeah.
they have like one of the things is they have to climb up a incline and then a big thing of water comes and they've got to try to like not get knocked down
Okay.
by it. And they never
Okay.
do. They always, every time they're climbing up and then the water starts falling and it hits them and they just go back down.
Of
So
course. That's the show.
there you go.
See people falling.
Right.
Do you have by any chance do you know how many gallons of water they throw at them, because that would help this
I think they have
conversation.
said it before. That would really help the conversation if I would have been a more engaged viewer. But
It's all right.
let's be honest, you're not listening to what they're saying.
Call Luke down
Um,
here. Let's see.
it's actually Chewy.
Oh, okay.
Chewy's into it, but he's in the next room over. I can knock on the wall.
It's perfectly okay.
Hey, come here. But yeah. What did you think of the use of sympathy here, specifically the blood, right?
Yeah. As we'll see later in these chapters, it's a bit of a bad habit Quothe's getting into with using his blood for this sympathy. Seems, I mean, we had a whole chapter, that whole battle scene,
Yeah,
several episodes
with
ago now,
Fenton.
with Fenton, where they do a pretty good job of telling us how dangerous this is.
Yeah,
And he takes, I don't know how hard it is to break twice tough glass, but he's drawing enough energy. The relation is strong, right? It's glass to twice tough glass. I imagine that connection between those two elements is strong. So you shouldn't need as much energy to convince them that they're the same in Patrick's system. So maybe this one wasn't that bad.
mm-hmm.
Maybe it wasn't that bad. I mean, again, kind of where I was going with the quick thinking on the spot. I mean, he quickly evaluates everything he's got available to him, and he comes to a solution in, I don't even know, 12
Yeah.
seconds. I mean, very quickly. Thinking of his options. So
We're gonna see him do the same thing. That just hit me. We're gonna see him do the same thing later in one of these chapters.
yeah,
With his assailants. So
correct.
in
Yeah,
terms of evaluating, doing a quick inventory of what he has available, and then making something work. Right.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, very inventive.
I didn't go through it in my summary. I just said he used sympathy because it's a summary. But just to make sure we understand this, because I still have trouble wrapping my head around the particulars of sympathy.
Yeah.
So he grabs a piece of glass, a broken piece of glass.
Yeah.
And then he's got his alar that he needs to use the alar to
Yeah.
believe that it's actually going to, that what I'm breaking here is going to break that, right?
Yep. He has to believe that.
Big,
and that
too tough thing of glass. And then the blood supplies the energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Essentially. And he's got to believe it, but I always think of it as like he's got to convince that glass that it's the same as this glass to change its state. Right. I think in the early chapters where they talk about sympathy, they talk about, same rule we have, right, of thermodynamics. Matter can't be destroyed or created, it can just be changed, but it takes energy to change it, right? And so the blood is creating the energy to cause that object to change state, to be shattered like this other glass. But yeah, he has to have the alar in his mind and say, issue the sympathy, right, words to create the binding between the two pieces of glass, and then convince that glass to break, using energy and that alar, that belief in the words.
Right. But then the little drop of blood is like, this happened with him when he used his air, right? And he almost died because his lungs filled with all the air or whatever.
Yeah.
And that one instance on the road.
Yeah.
It's a little drop of blood on a little bit of glass, but it's connecting through sympathy to this huge vat of water, right? That requires a ton more energy to break than just stepping on.
So I don't know that it's the little drop of blood that's doing it. I think he used the glass to cut he stepped on the glass because he needed that glass to shatter also. But
right.
Then once he had it broken, he could use it to cut his hand because he needed a bigger supply of blood. He's using the blood here on his hand, not just the blood on the glass to create that. But it's not that the blood is on the glass that is providing the energy. It's himself that needs the energy to do it. Right? So I think he's using the blood on his hand from the cut. And that's why his body goes cold, because it's his blood.
Yeah.
He's taking the energy from his blood to do it.
Because he breaks the glass, cuts his thumb, then he smashes the glass. He smashes that bit of glass with his blood on it, right?
Okay.
Knowing I'd drawn blood, I smeared my thumb across the glass and spoke a binding.
Oh,
As I came to
interesting.
stand in front of the drench, oh, that answers your question. As I came to stand in front of the drench, he was in front of it. I dropped the glass to the floor, concentrated, and stepped down hard, crushing it with my heel. And that's when he felt cold, unlike anything I'd ever felt stabbed into
Oh,
me.
okay.
Yeah. I felt
Right.
it in my tongue and lungs and liver.
So I guess the
It
energy
worked.
maybe needs to come in contact with the item you're trying to affect.
I guess that's where I'm having trouble is the blood part.
Maybe there's a blood, maybe there's a double binding. Maybe he's binding the glass to the glass and also
Uh-huh.
binding his blood to that blood to connect the glass to the blood and to his own blood, which he's pulling the energy from.
He did
Take the
say that
energy
it's
out of this blood to that blood, right? So that it's got the energy to break. I don't know.
he said that it's a too tough pane of glass, or like it's like twice reinforced.
Yeah, I just think of it as
And
like bulletproof glass or something.
the idea behind it is I was looking it up, trying to make sense of this whole blood thing. And maybe I just need to go back and review what Abinthy taught him and everything too. That would probably help now that I think about it. But they talked about the idea that that twice protected glass could have been reinforced glass, but also magically reinforced as well.
Oh, interesting.
So he, to be able to hold that much water in it without breaking. And so the blood may have been what was needed to counteract that, the magical part of what was holding it together.
Interesting.
But
if we ever interview Pat, this is a
could
question we should ask him.
Yeah. Kilvin talks about it, but it's not incredibly clear. And it's not in this chapter, right? It's the next chapter, the one after.
Yeah, it's in the next one, I think.
The next one.
And I kind of skip over it a little bit, but
if we need to, we'll bring it back up.
Yeah.
Sympathy. It's a bit of a doozy for me still.
Yeah. I'm are you I'm a little surprised that as careful as Kilvin seems to be, that he wasn't even more careful with this bone tar stuff. Hourly checks. Somebody's job to check the thing hourly and make
There's
sure
like the little, like in a restroom at a restaurant.
Yes, exactly.
We've got it on the door that when the last time the restroom was cleaned.
Yeah, Kvothe says no cracks anywhere, right? Like, and if there is, you come get me, Kilvin, right now.
Right? Yeah.
Right. Like
you're not worried about the fact that there's frost all over this thing. That's not a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Pat didn't leave that shotgun on the wall for very long, did he?
No, he really didn't. No.
A shotgun blast that affects Denna, I guess, as much as it affects Kvothe in this circumstance.
That's true. That's true. I don't know that I have too much more just in this chapter. I think there's some other stuff that I want to come back to later. Mola, who's kind of the nurse that's taking care of him in the Medica.
She's great.
I want to talk about her more, but she's going to come up later. Anything else you thinking of?
Nope, got everything covered off from my notes here.
Cool. It's a good one. All right. Well, Scad, before we jump to chapter 67, we started this last episode, but we love the idea of featuring a podcast on our little podcast. So we want to pause here and talk about a podcast we love, hosted by people that we also love, and encourage you guys to check them out.
That's the trick. They're people we love that have podcasts that we'd like to promote. Because we love the people.
Right. That's absolutely true. Who are we looking at this time, Scatty?
We're at Kiss by Fire, which is a new-ish. I think they just celebrated their 1-year anniversary.
Oh, wow.
I don't know, maybe a month ago.
That would make sense. They're 12 episodes in, and they release episodes roughly once a month. So.
Yeah. So, it's hosted by longtime Blood Riders, B and Steph. They are covering Fire and Blood in depth. I mean, you guys, we covered Fire and Blood when it came out, or shortly after it came out. I think we did a fine job, but they're going pretty deep on this. And they do a good job. Very format wise, I'd say kind of similar to us. It's very light. Lots of kind of curvy avenues sometimes through personal stories and stuff to get to the point. Lots of squeaky chairs.
Spoiler free.
That's right.
No spoilers until the end when they do a spoiler section for those of you who are so inclined.
That's right. And how can they find these guys, man?
Uh, you can find them, their socials, anyways, at Kissed Podcast on Twitter or Blue Sky. You can find them on Spotify, probably other podcast platforms as well. I think Apple Podcasts as well. You can find them there. They do have a Patreon, so just look up Kissed Podcast Patreon. I don't have an exact link for that. You can become a patron for as little as $5 there, and they've got lots of cool perks. So if you want to support them that way, that's great. They have a threadless store that they just launched where you can buy shirts and other cool merchandise. Kissbyfire.threadless.com.
And they have a great little logo that Senrixian did for them.
Awesome logo.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Just it captures the two of them really well.
Personality.
Yeah.
Look, you guys, yeah, we love these two. You love these two.
Yeah.
You can find each of their personal Twitter accounts as well. At B Word. That's B as in boy or Beth or Bast or Banana Gun.
Verisimilitude, not to be
Or
confused with verisimilitude.
Borosaurus, a number of other things. And
Just
you can
Boris.
also Boris, there you go. Boris Blunt. B as in Boris Blunt. And then Steph's is at Steph with one F _, Lioness. And that's LYONESS.
That's right.
They have also appeared on Davos Fingers, right, Scad?
That's right. Yeah, you guys remember we had the Meet the Kalasar episodes a while back now, and gosh, I think B was like the second guest we had. We had Blood Rider Misa was, I think, our first guest. I think B was second.
Mm-hmm.
She did episode 104. If you want to find that, that was called "Only the Cold," and it covered Dance with Dragons John 8 and
13.
John. I can't read Roman numerals. There are 13 chapters for John in A Dance with Dragons.
It is his last one, though.
A Dance with Dragons, John 13. Yeah, that's of course Only the Cold. Didn't feel the fourth dagger, did he?
Yep. And then Steph's comes just a short time later. Episode 122, The She-Wolf and the Leech Lord. That's Akak Arya 10. You could tell by the title, but some of the fun interaction between Arya and Roose Bolton. And I think it was the first Arya chapter that we covered in Meet the Kalasar, which was kind of surprising considering how many Arya chapters there are.
And how many people claim that she's her favorite.
Yeah.
Like, people love Arya.
Right. I think we did a friggin' John Connington chapter before we did Arya. Like
the one available John Connington.
Yeah, with Lizzie.
There's only one, Lizzie. Isn't there?
I think there might be two.
Oh, there's two. Yeah. There's two.
Yeah.
And in Steph's case, Steph was certainly, she was part of the fandom before that episode, but we hadn't interacted a lot with her, and it was awesome because she pinged us and wanted to jump on, and we became close friends after that. So
I think it took all of 3 minutes to build a camaraderie.
She's our people.
A fantastic episode. Yeah.
She's our people. We just didn't know that about each other yet.
Right. Yeah. Now we have this fantastic friendship with her. And of course, B, we've been friends with since near the beginning of our podcast. She's been such a support to us, and she's truly like a sister. We bicker like siblings and love each other like siblings too. Anyways,
you bicker with like siblings.
It's my favorite thing. My favorite thing is to bicker with B. So B as in bicker. She's got terrible food opinions, but wonderful A Song of Ice and Fire insights along with Steph. Their podcast is great. Like Scad said, they take deep dives, noticing just the tiniest little things. I was just listening to their latest episode 12, talking about how the clothes that Jaehaerys arrived in when he landed in King's Landing demonstrated the kind of attitude he was returning with, and they spent a lot of time talking about that. It was so fascinating.
That's his earlier, like when he was like 13 years old and coming back.
Right. Yeah. And he showed up in like writer's worker clothes, like kind of giving out that feeling
man of the people. Yeah.
Man of the people. And also I'm ready to get to work. Like, I'm ready to get my hands kind of dirty to, right the ship and rule the kingdom, and little insights like that, which were so fascinating. But
Oh
also,
man.
Steph, maybe talk to a plumber. There was some problems with some dripping that on the podcast they kind of narrowed down to a faucet dripping above her room where she was recording in. So I don't know, Steph, maybe get
Mm.
that looked into. But
Listen, coming from the guy that allowed a fire
alarm.
alarm to ruin our entire first episode, don't you worry about it, Steph. It's fine.
It's great.
It's
I
fine.
almost tweeted at him that the dripping of the faucet is the new fire alarm.
Kiss by Fire.
Kiss by
Everyone, go check it
fire
out.
from check it out. Yep, as soon as you can. All right. Back to the podcast, Scad.
Yeah, chapter 67, A Matter of Hands. Kvothe elected to return to the fishery to see how bad the damage was and found it mostly operational. However, it was completely empty. Even Kilvin was missing. Kvothe finished the project that he was working on, hoping to earn a little bit of money, though his injuries made it somewhat difficult to complete. But he was interrupted in the end by the arrival of Kilvin, trying to shake a medical observer from his path and from dealing with his wounds. I will tend to them myself. Kilvin notices Kvothe and ushers him in. He immediately admonishes Kvothe, as Kilvin had found his thieves' lamp laying about where someone else could find it, because, both ran through a fire to save someone's life and left things a little bit behind. Kvothe is mortified, but Kilvin gives the game up very quickly, thanking Kvothe for saving Fella's life and averting disaster. In truth, Kilvin seems happy. A disaster this bad could have been much, much worse. Kvothe asks what went wrong with the canister, always one to try to uncover a mystery. The sigilry was bad, so the canister froze. Then the glass didn't protect it enough. Then the reagent froze and cracked the glass. Kvothe is amazed that Kilvin could fix it so easily. But Kilvin ensures it was not easily done, just quickly done. Kvothe, for his part, ensures that the rescue was not easy either. They both confess, actually. Kvothe that he broke Kilvin's 500-gallon drench, and Kilvin that he had a vial of the reagent that he used to link to the spill and cool it, keeping more of it from burning. He also used a heat eater to absorb all of the extra heat. It was all science, no magic. Kvothe and Kilvin both had used science to control this also scientific disaster. But Kvothe's still stunned by the sheer volume of heat that must have been contained, almost disbelieving that it was possible. And that's the end of the chapter.
Excellent. Excellent summary.
Thanks.
I did
It's a
just
little
go
bit of
back
a weird
and
one.
it is. Yeah. You
It's
get
just like, hey man, let's talk shop for a bit.
right. You get kind of these different sides of Kilvin all at once. You get the angry, rah, leave me alone. I'll take care of my own hands.
Yeah.
To kind of joking around with Kvothe,
Yes.
right? About the
Yes.
cloak and
Yeah, he's
everything. And
totally fucking with him. It's
yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah. Totally scares the crap out of him.
Yeah.
And then in a very trustworthy way, like you said, let's talk shop. Do you
Yeah.
think that's this whole experience kind of helped him trust Kvothe a little more?
I don't know.
Or see him as
Kilvin's
a bit more of a contemporary?
maybe. I think it at least made him see that he's different, that he's special, that he can solve problems in creative ways. But Kilvin also already kind of knew that, even just going back to the thieves' lamp. Like he's like, look, I know you're special. I know you get it. I know that you've got all these things. The thing he's mostly been worried about with both is his care. And would he be patient and careful? Same thing
Sure.
Lauren's worried about, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I don't think this showed him that, but I think it re-emphasized just how special this kid is. Nobody else thought of this, right?
Yeah. Sometimes it's not so much the talent or the ability to do something specific, like in this case, create this binding that saved everybody and everything or whatever. But it's the ability to think like that under pressure in those hard situations, right? You can be the best hockey player in the world, but if you freeze out there in the big game and can't get through the defenders to get to the net and score a goal, like in a creative way, what good are you?
Yeah. And we're gonna in the next chapter we'll talk to Fella who feels that way about herself, right?
Mm-hmm.
That
That's
in the
true.
moment she just didn't.
She froze.
She's got all the skill in the world. She's studying naming with Elodin. Like she's super good at everything, but she feels like she froze in that moment.
Yeah.
It wasn't effective.
Yeah. I was just looking back at the what Kilvin and Kvothe were talking about, and I probably should have reviewed this chapter again. I read it 2 or 3 times before, but just with our conversation now, Kvothe says it's no great mystery how he broke the glass. I know the sigildry for twice tough glass. What I can make, I can break. So it was sympathy combined with a bit of sigildry, and I wonder if that's where the blood came in.
Oh, that makes
You know what I
sense.
mean?
Yes. Yeah.
And Kilvin says, but where was your source? You could have nothing ready on such short notice. Kvothe holds up his bandaged hand. Blood. Using the heat of your blood could be called reckless. Kvothe.
Yeah. So, but also, yeah, I don't want to spoil for future things in the book, but they're like, don't be reckless. Good job.
Dang it, that was thoughtful.
Yeah, like it's
and then he says later, quite impressive to unbind what I have wrought with nothing more than blood.
Yeah.
So I think that's the twice tough glass, reinforced physically, reinforced with magic. Him crushing it, that broke the physical part of the glass, but the blood must have been part of the sigildry.
Interesting. Because
something. Someone will chime in.
Well, like with sigildry, like the important part of it is, at least that I remember, is that you've got to get the runes correct, right? Mm-hmm. And so I don't know how he can, unless it's through the binding again somehow, I don't know how he can smear blood over the sigildry of the canister that's up there by doing it on the glass down here, unless it's the same glass.
Isn't it also words too? Sigildry?
Sigildry is, I think of sigildry as sympathy in writing almost.
Right.
Yeah. It's a combination of shapes of lines that have an effect on objects.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So by double binding the glass, I always just thought it was definitely thick glass. You've taught me today that that's not what it is. By double binding the glass, he's etched, somehow these sigils on it that make it difficult to break.
Yeah.
And so if you just erase one of those lines, you could turn it from twice tough glass to half tough glass, depending on what changing that little shape did. But smearing blood, I don't know. I mean, we're all guessing, right? But maybe
they're all runes.
Maybe the sigil gets confused, right? Because it's no longer clear or something. I don't know.
I know the sigildry for twice tough glass. What I can make, I can break.
Yeah.
It does have to do very much with runes. So, anyways.
I'm glad you asked those questions because I didn't even think about that part.
Yeah. Someone will enlighten us, I'm sure. I'm probably overthinking it.
No, I don't think you are. If he's saying you've unbound my sigildry, then there's clearly sigildry on it that somehow he modified to allow it to break.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it would be sympathy that would cause the glass to break, but not through the sigil. Not if it's, it's interesting.
Right.
I mean, maybe you can overpower even a sigil if there's enough energy. It's like, well, it was plus tough glass, but if it was 3 times tough, then it would have lived. But he used enough blood energy to overpower the sigil, maybe.
Yeah.
It's like that lock on Ari's grate. Like, okay, if the Incredible Hulk came and pulled on it, would it come up? Or is it strong enough to even hold that?
Yeah. Is the sigildry strong? Make it strong enough to
hold it in place. Limits. Right?
Yeah. Kilvin's interesting. He said, "You are a fine boy, but this twice tough glass was made by my own hands." And then he talks about how people couldn't break it with an anvil hammer. So then that leads me to believe that he just reinforced it really well.
Yeah.
But then later, after Kvothe talks about using the blood and knowing the sigildry for twice tough glass, Kilvin nodded thoughtfully, quite impressive to unbind what I have wrought with nothing more than blood. So I think between those two statements, he makes it clear that there's a physical aspect to it, but also there's a binding there that happened as well using magic. And Kvothe was able to unbind that with nothing more than blood.
Yeah. And the question to me is like, how does that, like a verbal component that actually binds the sigil once it's there, or the sigil itself is the magic, in which
Mm-hmm.
case, how's he modifying it from below?
Right.
Anyway, it's very interesting. More Pat, we need to interview you, man.
Yeah, can we talk, bud?
We got questions. I wonder how much of this stuff is answered. I should go look. There's so much stuff in the Reddit for this.
There's a
Reddit
lot.
Reddit is a
Yeah,
gold mine for information on this series.
it really is. If you've got if you have the patience for it and
Yeah, there's
the determination.
it takes a lot.
Yeah.
I went down a pretty deep hole today. Yeah.
Uh,
Where do you think stories come from? Gilvin says. This is in response to Elodin or somebody that knew the name of fire being able to just waltz in and just calm the fire down.
mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the story that maybe Kilvin had done just that. And Kilvin's like, well, I don't know the name of fire. This would have been way easier if Elodin was here, or even I think he says Elxadal as well knows the name of fire. Um, and Kvothe's like, nah, those are just stories. That's not real, right? Nobody could do that. And he says, where do you think stories come from?
Yeah.
And and I think, like the closest thing we have to this kind of thing is religion for me, right?
Sure.
Like I'm an atheist. Everyone that listens to this cast regularly knows that. Matt and I talk about it every once in a while. I have a great curiosity and respect for religion in general. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and but I struggle with a lot of it. But one of the things that I always think about religion is like, okay, Jesus with the fish, right? And he turns one fish into many. Okay, seems, from like a scientific perspective, seems ridiculous. And if you don't have faith, then of course that can't happen. If you have faith, no problem. But the story is interesting because from somebody who doesn't have faith and just like that can't happen, where did the story come from? It came from something. Something happened to make somebody, come up with this. Certainly, maybe the fish one is a bad example, and it's just it's more of an analogy or something. But certainly, some of these things happened and were related, and the story came from somewhere. It wasn't
Right.
just there is fiction. Of course, we're reading fiction, but like there are enough accounts of this stuff that some of these things happened, and so it's one of the biggest arguments for religion to me. Is like these things they're not invented from nothing, right?
Yeah. Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead.
Yeah.
Right.
The guy was dead. We all buried him. Like, like that didn't come from nothing.
Sure. Sure.
Something happened.
Maybe he was in a coma and
Sure.
there's explanation there. I choose the faith aspect and this,
Yeah,
but it's fine.
right.
But I love looking at other perspectives, especially yours. We've had some great discussions about this stuff, but yeah, like where did it start? Maybe there were only 5 people that he was trying to feed the fish to, and then it grew with time. And oh yeah, well, we need to increase our number of fish here. How do we do that?
Nobody's impressed by my story, Bob. Well, did you try upping the number of fish? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
stories start somewhere. It's very true, and we've seen a microcosm of that just in the last chapter, right? They were already starting to change Kvothe's story of everything that he did to get Fela out of the fishery.
And I don't think it's spoiling to talk about this because it's mileage we've covered through Lanre and everything, but like a huge component of this book series in general is potentially about that story living on and who knows it and who doesn't know it, and potentially different sects within the world. Not sex, guys. Not sex.
Come
sects.
on, get your mind out of the gutter.
Head out of the gutter.
Jeez,
Goodness.
You people.
I almost made a
swear, grow
69 joke when we said we were going through chapter 69 today.
69.
I held out. I held out, very unlike what actually happens when I'm in a 69.
Hey-o.
Hey. So where was I?
That'll be all for us tonight, folks. Good night.
And we're finished. The different sects within the world that are trying to either raise that message or squash it. The Chandrian very much don't want their names around their story. It seems like they want it, quashed based on what we've seen. We've got theories about other people as well. They're kind of spoilery, but Um, you know, the, the whole fact that this book is a story. It's one storyteller telling it to another one, right? That's going to chronicle it and make his own story is, you know, interesting enough. Um, stories
Yeah, it's
start
true.
somewhere and are told by someone, and
That's
that's
true.
incredibly important in this book.
Mm-hmm.
And just because it seems like a fairy tale doesn't mean it didn't used to happen, or doesn't, or couldn't happen today with the right people.
Yeah. Layers upon layers. Well said, man. Of this whole story aspect.
Yeah.
That's cool. Just in general, I love that Kvothe's like, well, back to work. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is all
Well,
within one day, you guys. Like, right?
yes.
This is
Yeah.
all within a day.
Uh,
It happened in the
yes.
morning.
Yes.
Afternoon, he goes to Emery, walks
Yes.
to Emery on
Yes.
burned legs, no
Has a late
shoes,
lunch, and
has
here's
some
the
lunch,
yep.
talks to his pal, goes all the way back, decides, I should probably get back to work. I got to
Yep.
make some money in this
Yeah.
burned out husk of a fishery.
Yeah. It's
This is all
it's
in a day.
it's a very bad day.
Like, take some time, bro.
Yeah. And he's not going to take off the next day either. He's going to have a
No.
busy one.
Hey, that's a nice
A
segue.
nice sedgeway.
Yep.
Oh, the ever-changing wind.
Sigu.
Kvothe
Yep.
is in a bad mood, burned and in pain, penniless, without much immediate prospect, and feeling like heroism is maybe not worth it after all. He was in a really down place, contemplating how he could continue to make enough money to stay at the university, especially without access to the archives to study, to lower his tuition. Even after getting a talent and a half for his blue emitters from Kilvin, Kvothe is dismayed at scraping by all semester, only to barely be able to repay his loan, and again have nothing left over for tuition. A feeling again reinforced by the fact that his nearly empty pockets are again nearly even more empty, I suppose, after buying a pair of walking boots to shod his now bare feet. But how quickly the wind can change. It wasn't Denna waiting for him at the Oleum like he wanted, but it was the recently rescued from the fire, Fela. A Fela that is a bit bruised and battered, but a Fela that is thankful for his heroism, while bemoaning her deer in the headlights behavior in the fire herself. Kvothe does his very best to make her feel better, assuring her that he saw her looking for a way out, that she would have saved herself if he hadn't done so. Fela has a gift for Kvothe, and she comes very near to drape it about him. Kvothe is stunned by her beauty, while she gives him a wondrous cloak, a cloak he could never afford on his own, a cloak with many hidden pocketses, a cloak that fits him like a glove. But as she withdraws away from Kvothe, he sees Denna leaving the Aeolian. He considers following her, but he can't extricate himself from the conversation with Fela. Had she seen him kiss Fela's hand? Had she seen Fela's arms around him? Both can't say. And by the time the gift giving is over and Fela's thanks again made clear, Denna is gone, and she could be anywhere. That night, on his way to play at Mainz, both realized something from what Kilvin had told him about the bone tar. If it mostly all went down in the grates, Ari was in danger. He rushes to their special meeting place, dragging Mola along from the Medica to assist with any sort of emergency medicine that they might need. Mola has questions, but holds on to them for the moment in the interest of helping someone in need. Both calls to Ari, dropping down into the courtyard and making his way to the grate, smelling ammonia from the bone tar wafting up from above. It appears that Ari is nowhere to be found, and Mola is starting to lose patience, just as Ari calls down from the roof. Both, his relief palpable, both introduces a tentative Ari to the reserved Mola and queries about whether Ari had been hurt at all by the fire or the smoke. Ari was too fast and too clever for the fire. She's physically fine, though she regrets that her home now reeks of cat piss. So they all sit and exchange gifts as usual, have a meal, and listen to Kvothe play. As Mola and Kvothe leave, they talk about Ari, specifically why hasn't Kvothe told anyone, gotten her more help. Kvothe admits he is a little afraid of scaring her away if a bunch of people start showing up. He claims that he brings her what he can to help, but she won't take secondhand clothing and is very particular about gifts. But most importantly, he's afraid they'd toss her in the rookery. Mola, convinced enough for now, I guess, offers Kvothe her shoulder as they walk to aid his aching body. The end.
Well summarized.
Thank you.
The theme for this chapter is the women in Kvothe's life.
Yeah.
And I love that.
we get a dose of four of them, don't we?
You get Denna, you get Fela, you get Mola, you get Ari.
We do.
And I love his relationship or budding relationship with all of them. Right. I guess you don't get a lot of Denna. You get Denna in passing.
Yes. You see
which
her.
is nice. But I started like kind of breaking down these four different women and how Kvothe feels about them. And it's just really fascinating. I think Rothfuss is doing it for a reason. But like with Denna, she's just, what is it, Scad? She's like all encompassing for him, right? Intoxicating, maybe, right?
Totally.
It makes him unsure of himself. He's second guessing himself. Like he's very happy when he's with her. He's completely content, but at the same time, he's like, "Oh, what should I do?" The normal confident Kvothe isn't there, right?
She's the instability in his life, if you want to think of it that way, right? Like
for sure,
she's the X factor. She's the unknown, the wild card that can make him drop everything.
Oh, that's so true. Like he's talking about how much he needs to, do well in school so he can make money and everything. And what does he do? He skips class to go find her. To go to the Olean to see if she's there. Right.
And he spends the money that he could be saving for tuition on bread and strawberry wine.
Exactly. Oh, then you've got Fela. Oh man, let's talk about Fela for a minute.
Yeah.
I'm a fan.
She's a gem. Yeah.
She's so cool, right? I wanted to get to, okay, I marked all the different things he talks about. He mentions about her. Her dark hair swinging. She was lovely as always. She shifted her hips in a way I found most distracting. Her smile burst out again, dazzling as ever. I could feel the warmth of her hand through my shirt. She looked up at me, her eyes luminous. Her smile dazzled me again the second time. Her smile beamed out again. These are all ways that he describes her, right?
Mm-hmm.
How the way she looks or presents herself makes him feel. And it, but at the same time, it's not like carnal. There is a part where he talks about her breast rubbed up against his arm and that,
he's 15.
I mean, right? But it's also very sincere. Like those are very sincere compliments to pay to someone. A dazzling smile, luminous eyes. It's very sweet. He could be very happy with Fela, he's confident around her. Their conversations come very easy, right? And I think Rothfuss is almost
they have a lot in common.
They have a ton in common. He respects the heck out of her.
Their study and their,
right?
Their fields of expertise.
Her calloused hands, he respects her.
Yes. The hands comment is my favorite bit of this chapter, maybe.
Yeah. What do you like about it?
Oh, just that he's just instead of being complimentary, he's honest, which Kvothe I think frequently is. He's got a gilded tongue, as Mola says later in this chapter.
Right.
Or sorry, no, it was in the previous chapter.
Yeah.
But he's just honest with her. He says what is it specifically? He says this isn't a maiden's hand, right? It's this is the hand of a swooning princess who sits tatting lace and waiting for some prince to save her. This is the hand of a woman who would climb the rope of her own hair to freedom or kill a captor ogre in his sleep. This is the hand of a woman who would have made it through the fire on her own if I hadn't been there. Singed, perhaps, but safe. He's being honest with her, and it sounds like it's not a compliment, but it is. He's complimenting the type of woman she is.
Right.
A problem solver, a doer, someone that, gets things done, can work on projects, can be effective with her hands. And I think that's probably attractive to him.
It's lovely.
And it's more than just attractive to him. It's valuable to humanity, to you as a person. It's a part of something that makes you a valuable person, Fela, right? Mm-hmm. And I notice that. And there's, not great with the ladies, I suppose, but there's nothing that compliments are fine. But if you can actually show that you notice something real about them with some depth, that's going to go further than, a year's worth of compliments. Right?
Roses,
Yeah,
like
they'll remember that kind of thing
Rose's
forever.
chat from that he
She,
had with Denna.
she will
Hmm.
remember this conversation about her hands for the rest of her life. She will
Good point.
not remember any of these other compliments,
Hmm.
right? If he doesn't actually give them; they're just observations that he has in his head. If he gave them, I doubt she'd remember them. But the hand thing, that's a moment,
That is
right?
beautiful. Yeah, well said, man. Um, I almost feel like Rothfuss is presenting her as everything Kvothe could want, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Almost in a way to be a foil for Denna in demonstrating the allure that Denna really has on Kvothe,
Yes. Yeah.
right? Like here's
She's
this
yeah.
this model of perfection, everything you could want, Kvothe, in terms of physical beauty, in terms
Mhm.
of talent, in terms of personality, everything you could want, and still you're looking over her shoulder at Denna leaving,
Yeah.
right? Elusive Denna, who you can never pin down, where you've got someone right in front of you. That's
It's
awesome.
it's one of I've said this before on our cast, but it's one of the things I actually don't love about Rothfuss's female characters, at least in this book. I think he
Mm,
does get better at it, but it feels like Fella's purpose is almost to serve as a foil to
yeah,
Denna
right.
instead of just being a character and being a real person. He
Hmm.
does some things with her that are nice, and I love her. I think she's great,
Yeah,
but
I'm
it
Team
does
Fela,
it does
big time.
feel that way, that she's kind of a foil to Denna rather than being her own thing with her own
Yeah,
wants and desires sometimes.
let's keep an
um
eye on her because
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm
But
Team
I think
Fela.
your point is good. I think it does illustrate to the reader that very thing, right? About how much of a star of the sun, that brings his attention Denna is, even
Hmm.
when we've got this, this shining bright light of Fela as well.
Yeah, Deox into her too. He said over
Thanks and
Fela's
everybody.
shoulder, I saw Deox grin from where he leaned in the doorway across the room. I contrasted that with back when he met Denna with Will and Sim. He saw in Deox's face a glimmer of sadness or pity. He didn't know what. And
Yeah,
now he's smiling.
yeah,
Deox liking this too.
yeah.
He's like, go Kvothe.
There are people that think Diok maybe has some maybe not great intentions. I
Mm-hmm.
think he's just rooting for Kvothe. I think he really
I think
likes
he's
him,
too.
and
Yeah.
he's like, don't, you know, we've all got that friend that always like falls for the wrong person. I'm
God,
not saying
dude.
Denna's the wrong person, right? Like, I think she and Kvothe have something very interesting. I don't know what all of her motivations are, maybe, but like, I think she's special. But it'd probably be a lot simpler with Fella, and I bet Diok is a
She's not
simpler
gonna break your
man.
heart, man. She's
He's a
not gonna
simpler
break your
man than
heart.
Kvothe is, and he sees that, and he's
Uh,
he's just rooting for him. He's like, yes,
well,
here we
because
go.
here's the thing with that. No one comes into the Aeolian without Deoc knowing,
Yeah,
right? Is that fair to say?
I mean, I assume he takes breaks, but yeah, basically,
He must have known that Denna was in there.
yeah.
He had to have known that she was there. And he still didn't say anything to her. He's like, Fela's over there. You should go sit down with her. And he
Yeah,
had to have known in the back of his head, oh, Denna's upstairs or whatever. Like,
yeah. The first thing he says, it's at the very beginning of a little chapter section, right? Not a
mm-hmm,
chapter, but a section.
mm-hmm.
Your timing is good today, Diok said as I approached the Aeolian. We've got someone waiting for you. So,
So, okay. Mm-hmm,
so
mm-hmm.
he even says I felt a foolish grin spread to my face and clapped him on the shoulder as I headed inside. So it almost seems like Diok is insinuating, oh, interesting. He actually could have meant Denna.
He could have meant Denna, but this thing about the grin contrasted with the other look when Kvothe was with Denna in the previous chapter makes
Yeah,
me believe that he was guiding Kvothe to Fela. That's
they're
what I
out
think.
there. As I approached the Aeolian, so they're outside,
Sure. Yeah.
and he goes in without Diok. Diok says somebody's waiting for you. He may know
Uh-huh.
Fela's waiting for him,
That's
and he
true.
may actually be referring to Denna.
He could be. Yeah,
But you're right. The look he gives though later implies that he's happy. Oh, I never read it that way. That's interesting.
Or he could have come in and been like, "Oh, Quoth's not with Denna. He's with her.
Good
That's
job,
nice.
Kvothe.
That's
Yeah, good for
nice."
you. Good for
Yeah.
you, kid. Playing hard to get or something. I don't know. Uh, it doesn't read that way. I imagine he meant fella, right?
Yeah.
And that does imply some sort of, I don't know about sinister, but like he didn't tell him Denna was there.
He's
Like if
protecting Quoth's heart in his mind, right? That's why
maybe,
he has
but
the conversation with him later.
yeah.
Is
But
That's what it comes off as.
if you were a friend though, if you were a friend and you knew that a guy was about to walk in and two exes were in the house party that he's going to, you'd be like, "Hey, I just want you to know, Marie's there and Anna's there, and I just want you to know, like, they're, just be prepared." Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he could have given him a little heads up if he, I don't know.
At the same time, we don't know how much he knows about Fela.
No, I'm assuming that he knows she's waiting for him. We've got someone waiting for you.
And
If
if
he's
word
applying
had
to
gotten
Denna,
around like
but
he said it did, he could have heard that, oh,
yes,
that's the girl that Kvothe saved in the fire that I heard about, or da 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 da
right.
da. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't think we have much. Maybe it even belongs in Dallas After Dark. But Diok, I don't. I tend to think he's just a good guy,
Yeah.
but he certainly either didn't know she was in there or didn't help a dude out.
And I think he was watching out for Kvothe's heart and was trying to just point him in what he saw as the right direction, which to him was Fela.
Yeah, maybe, maybe.
Right or wrong. Right or
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
All right. Oh, I love that. That was a lot more talking than I planned on with Fela, but I'm glad we did it.
Par for the
I'm glad
course
we
with
did
us,
it.
my friend.
Yeah, I love it.
We got two more women in your analysis
We
here,
got two more
though. I'm
women. Yeah,
excited.
we've got Ari, right?
Yeah,
And to me, Ari brings out like the pure,
yeah,
unmitigated, just good in Kvothe, right?
yeah,
He's always been nice. He's a good kid. But especially at the university, he's pretty self-absorbed and understandably so, right? He's
yeah.
trying to survive. What is it that he says about I was a hair's breadth away from disaster, right?
Like at all times. Yeah,
All times. So stressful. We've talked about how just stressful some of these chapters are to read.
yeah,
But with her, he willingly sacrifices quite a lot for her, you know,
yeah,
money he spends on her to buy food and vitamins, like he's putting thought into buying things that she really needs,
yeah,
time, right? Spending time with her, not just like dropping it off at the grate, but spending time with her, talking to her, indulging her, right?
yeah.
Um, it's almost like, where do you think that comes from? Like that concern, and it's just a completely different side of Quoth that we've, in my estimation, have never seen, at least to this degree, that he just so willingly does it, just so thoughtful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I feel like we get maybe a little bit of in Tarbean, and it's not just about him. It's about all those kids,
Sure.
right? That they all kind of, I don't know if there's a code to it, right? But like
A little bit.
those in need will help each other, right? If you find
Mm-hmm.
somebody that has more needs than you help, right? And when you've got a little, you give, and when you need a little, someone gives to you, and that kind of thing. I'm sure it's a lot more cutthroat than that on the streets than I'm, painting it out to be, but the streets of Tarbean, that is. But I feel like you know, he knows how bad he has it. He's very honest with us in this story. I think he honestly felt that way when he was that age, outside of telling us this story. Um, but I think he sees someone here that is both interesting. She's not your average street urchin. There's something special or different about her. He can tell that.
True. Good point.
And also, she's got it worse than him. And so
Mm-hmm.
we should help. And also, like, martyrdom or heroism or what it is, but he thinks he's kind of the only one that can. He doesn't want her to get startled, right? And uh it took him months, right, to get her to trust to come out, and he's worried that she'll never come back out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's that he feels a responsibility for her because she needs help and he thinks he's the only one who can give it, and he thinks she's actually pretty interesting.
That's
There's
a good
something
point.
he loves a mystery, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, in a way, I'm being very crass when saying this and negative and cynical, but it does feed his pride a little bit in the sense of I'm the only one,
Yeah,
right?
sure, it does.
That can do this.
Yep.
But I don't think that's his main motivating factor, and I don't think you're saying that either.
No,
Genuinely finds
yeah,
her to be interesting, and in a world where he honestly kind of feels like he's at the bottom of the social totem pole,
yeah.
he's
It
got now
allows him to
someone.
be,
I can still help somebody, even being at
yeah,
the bottom of this totem pole. I still have someone that I can help lift up, even if it's just making sure she gets her vitamins. You know, like,
yeah,
I also think maybe that all the pressures of the world don't matter, of his world don't matter when he's with her.
agreed. Yeah, I was going to
You
make a
know,
similar point. Yeah, that
she's an escape, kind of.
yeah, a bit. She's somebody that he can talk to about all sorts of things he would never talk to Willinson about.
Right. It's like childish whimsy about
Yeah, he can
fairies
even
blowing on things. I
he could even
forget some
talk
of the
to
stuff
him
he
if
says.
she's a little, maybe, you know, flighty's really a negative word, I guess, but like she's maybe a little too flighty to have a serious conversation about his destitution, but he could. She's
Mm-hmm.
also poor. Like he could talk to her about his financial troubles that he would never bring up with anyone else
Yeah.
for
But the
pride
point is
reasons.
that he doesn't. And it's almost like he's able to forget about those things for a
Yeah, let
while.
them
You know,
go. Yeah,
they don't matter to her.
in the
And
simpler
so,
world, yeah, of
yeah,
Ari. Yeah.
it's just simple. Um, Also, speaking of pride, she loves it when he plays music.
Yeah,
And that's nice.
yeah,
That's
it is
nice.
nice. Everybody loves it when he plays music, though, from what we can tell.
Yeah.
But
But
yes, that's
she's
true.
like unmitigated clapping, like
Yes,
play, play, play.
yes.
But
His voice is like a thunderstorm, and his hands know every secret hidden deep beneath the cool, dark earth. It's maybe the best compliment I've ever heard. And
that is
Ari
beautiful.
and Ari gives it
That is beautiful.
to
Yeah.
Mola. You have to
Right.
stay, she says. His voice is like a thunderstorm, and his hands know every secret hidden deep beneath the cool, dark earth. It's so beautiful.
That is beautiful, man. So you don't sense any sort of like physical attraction or anything, but
No,
Ari does have a, has forged this significant emotional connection with Kvothe that
it's like
makes him another one of the important women in his life.
it feels sibling-ish, but
A bit,
also
yeah,
a little bit parent-ish.
a bit,
But
yeah.
in a way that, like, I think Ari also feels the same way about Kvothe,
Mm-hmm.
that she's looking after him a little bit. Like silly Kvothe. He doesn't know
Yeah.
these things, you know?
Hold on to this coin; it's going to be important, right? Um,
Yes.
the the last woman, who's kind of our dark horse, is Mola, right? Um,
Yeah.
kind of flirty with her. And
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
what's different is the confidence between her and Denna, the confidence with Kvothe in the way that he addresses her and speaks to her and everything. He's very confident around her, and is in his slight flirtyish way. He's super complimentary of her, more so than the
Yes.
others. Um,
Probably, yeah.
I think so in terms of just like outward, like, oh, you deserve to get that promotion a long time ago type thing.
Yes.
Like just very outwardly complimentary and respectful. I wonder if he's slightly intimidated by her a little bit, because she
I,
is so accomplished. Go ahead.
it feels more like a colleague
Yeah.
relationship to me.
Yeah.
I don't feel he's complimentary and he's playful maybe, but I don't feel like he's flirting with her much.
A playfulness. Yeah. I could see it skirting that fuzzy line between playful and flirtation. I don't think he's trying to,
I mean,
he's
yeah,
not looking for anything beyond just what they already have. for sure.
The compliments he gives are always about her abilities, things she's good at, how she's capable. Don't spare my feelings. You could throw me off this roof anyway if you wanted to. Right? Like
that's another one. That's
you can
another
take care
one.
like you can take care of yourself. Like
right.
Um
She's intellectually stimulating to him.
That's true. Yeah.
And I think that's important to him.
She can banter. Yeah.
He's got someone that will tell him the way it is, that, for as confident as he is, she is back to him. So there's not like, this isn't a Fela Denna thing. This is very much just like having someone in his life who he can kind of go toe to toe with a little bit.
Yeah.
But who's also very supportive. She's, that's very significant, that last moment where she says, lean on me. Right. Yeah. I think that that's a very meaningful, quick passage that could say more about her reliability as a friend. She dropped everything she was doing after a long day of work to go with him just because on a whim,
Yeah.
Just trusted him.
And I'm not saying like his charms don't work on her, maybe, but like she's not going to let them know that they work on her. Right. And she's going to be very pragmatic about it and very logical and reasonable about it. And she's not going to lose her head over it. And she's not going to let him manipulate her with it.
Listen, I've had a long day. I'm just going to sit over on this bench.
I'm just going to sit. I'm tired.
I love that about her.
I'm sitting. And she takes him to task. She's like, why aren't you getting this person help?
Yeah, exactly.
Not, oh my gosh, you're so helpful to this person.
Yeah.
You're such a saint. She's like, why aren't you doing more?
Dude.
Right? Like she calls him out.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love that.
Mola's great. Yeah.
So you get these 4 women in Kvothe's life, and all of them play these significant, I think, roles that was just fun to see all combined into one chapter. I don't think I would have realized Mola, for example, if I hadn't seen all 4 women focused on so close together, like packed together into one chapter. I thought it was really fascinating.
And my biggest complaint is that they have to be packed into one chapter.
Right.
So I'd love to see more of them.
Yeah.
But because I think they're great. But
yeah. I was thinking about this, and you and I have talked about this a little bit, but so much of what makes genre is just how the author chooses what emphasis the author puts on different things, right?
Yeah.
Like Name of the Wind, this series, the Kingkiller Chronicle, is fantasy. It deals with a lot of fantastical elements. But I almost feel like Rothfuss, he could take away the sympathy, sigildry, magic, Chandrian, everything, and just make this like a YA coming of age romance novel. Yeah. And I'd still be interested in it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And we said that about Song of Ice and Fire as well. Like if you take away, if you take away the dragons and the scary ice monsters, it's just a like political family drama. Right? Like you can easily move that, it's Succession. You move it forward. I think I wrote a Twitter post about that. You just move it forward a bunch of, put it in our world and move forward a bunch of years. It's just Succession with a lot more families. Right? I mean, like it's, you can, where you choose to write. Lord of the Rings too. I mean, you could, it's not as easy as a lift, but that's a Band of Brothers-ish story.
Sure.
Right. About the evils of war. And, there's a lot more to it than that for sure. And if Emmett were hearing this, he'd probably kick me in the face, but because it's way deeper than that, but like at its core, take away the fantasy elements and this
is what you have.
That's what you have. It's a Band of Brothers kind of war story.
And that's the kind of stuff I think that draws me to stories like this. I'm not as into the fantasy stuff. It's fun. I like it just fine. But I love, analyzing his relationship with these 4 women. Yeah. Probably way more than I love trying to understand sympathy and how he broke the glass.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree too. I mean, I think I'm more into the fantasy maybe than you are, but it's all, we've said this from, nearly day one of our podcast. It's all about character driven stuff for us. It's, I don't care whether there's a nice sword or not. I want to know that the person wielding it has a reason and that the reason is good or not good.
Yeah.
And why and what drives it and, all those other things.
Yeah. Anyways, I was just thinking about that. Though. I was like, yeah, totally. I was like, man, if this were just a story about Kvothe being at school as a freshman, like it
Yeah.
would still be interesting to me.
Yeah.
I would still like it.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. And I think because there's a lot of truth in it. What is the song name by the Goo Goo Dolls? But a line in a song by the Goo Goo Dolls is, I wandered through fiction to look for truth.
Hmm.
And I think that applies to a lot of what we look for in fiction, right? We wander through this fictitious story looking for the truth in the human experience.
Yeah.
And man, we find it here. We find it in
Yeah.
Lord
I
of the
don't think
Rings.
you
We
have to
find it in
wander.
A
I don't
Song
think
of
you have to
Ice and
wander
Fire.
very far in this story.
No, you totally
Yeah.
don't. What is the
Yeah.
name of that song? Before It's Too Late.
No, I don't know that one.
Deep Cut by the Googs. I wandered through fiction to look for truth. It's the opening line of the song. I think that's how it stuck with me. But anyways, I have monopolized the discussion on this chapter, Scad, and I'm very sorry for that. But
Most of my stuff falls in line with kind of where we went talking about the women anyway. The only other thing I had is that I disagree with Kvothe's demeanor. I understand being down about it and upset and feeling like you've experienced a setback, but I feel like he can get the money. It feels like, he got a talent and a half just from making the emitters, and that was like a day of work. He has free room and board and meals. He can make more at the Aeolian. Like if he can make 2 talents a week, he'd have 16 talents, I think, if I understand what time of year it is. He'd have 16 talents before the end of the term, enough to pay Devi back
do
and
all
have
this. Yeah.
plenty. Right. And I
Yeah.
know there are life expenses and things, but like I feel like he's too down on himself. I feel like he really could do this if he's got to keep working. He's good at working,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't feel insurmountable to me. Other than the fact that
Yeah.
he always faces tragedy and has pride and gets in his own way. Other than that, it feels like he could do it to me.
It feels possible. I detected a sense of just being completely overwhelmed in this
Yes,
chapter, right?
he's 15, as we have to keep
And
reminding ourselves.
yeah, and you stop thinking correctly and analyzing the situation of,
Yeah,
maybe I just need to play more shows, if I did this. And he really devalues his, it's like he's kind of like, just thinking about this now. He's kind of like the squirrel mentality, right?
mm,
Oh, blue light emitters is the way to make money. So I can only do blue light emitters. Like I have to focus on that.
yeah,
Whereas, 2 episodes ago, it was, I got to get my pipe so I can play at the Aeolian,
yeah,
and that's
yeah,
the only way to make money is to
yeah,
play my music. So I got to practice all the time to
yeah.
get good enough so I can get my pipe so I can play at the Aeolian. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, no, settle down, dude. Think this through, right? Make a plan, right? If you play this many nights at Anchor, if you do this, and da 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 da. Like, he
Well,
is 15.
not to spoil too much of what for next episode, but he's about to throw all that crap out the window and focus on something else.
Just
So
punt.
get ready for that.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And I think Kilvin telling him about what he did to put out the fire just like
Yes.
blew Kvothe's mind
Yeah.
even more, to the point where he's like, I have to stay at the university.
I
I don't
have to
even
know how to do
know
this stuff.
a fraction of what I'm supposed to know.
Yeah.
Right. And I think
Yeah.
that made it worse. Like, he's like, oh crap, but I can't stay here. I gotta make money. I gotta just
Yeah.
tumble down the hill, rolling himself into a great big snowball. And
All again with your squirrel kind of reference, all with the backdrop of supposedly he's actually only here to learn about the Chandrian so we can figure that out.
oh yeah, Chandrian,
Like,
that's a thing.
remember? So like, yeah, all these mysteries of the world that he wants to learn, like Kilvin, but also like, again, not to spoil too much, but as soon as he gets a drop of knowledge about the Chandrian, that's what he's really interested in, right? Or
Apparently.
maybe not if Denna gives him the time of day. Or
Right. Yeah, we forget all about that big sun in his galaxy right now, which is
yes.
Denna.
Yeah.
And
We need Kvothe has ADHD t-shirts or something.
I agree. Yep. Oh, and I love him for it. Fascinating. Okay. Anything else?
No, I don't think so. I
That was
I
fun,
guess it does feel a little weird that he doesn't just chase after Denna. If Denna really is the son we're talking about, she's right there.
dude.
Just run up,
We've
just
talked
be
about
like,
it.
fella literally just told you I'll do anything for you. Be like, anything? Sit tight. Go run for Denna for like 2 minutes and have a conversation.
So
Right?
true.
Like, you care about this
Oh,
woman so much and you're so in need of seeing her and explaining things, and you can't just leave a conversation to somebody that owes you a great debt and has said they'd do anything for you.
I get
Be
it. I
like,
get it.
fella, I know this is rude. Sit down and have a drink and please wait for me. I'd love to continue the conversation. I have to do something. 10 minutes and go.
Right.
It's that easy. And then you're out the door.
Oh.
I, I mean, I know he has to write a story here, and that doesn't make the storytelling as easy, but
Mm-hmm. But I
and
think he likes Fela too. He's not all in on Denna. Not completely.
I still think Denna's the son.
I think she is too. She 100% is the son.
I mean,
I think I'm blinded because I'm really team Fela. Yeah. I mean, so thoughtful with the gift too. Not only getting him the
yes,
cloak, but putting the pockets in it. Like just
pockets is yes.
yeah. All
What has
right.
it got in its pockets is
Precious. Okay. Wind or women's fancy?
chapter 69.
What do you set the thermostat to, Scad?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
69. We're close.
Speaking of that cloak, Kvothe's got his new cloak on his shoulders, and he's got some money from selling blue light emitters in his pocket, uh, giving him some excuses to go to Imri. He's got to go to Imri to, buy supplies, return that book that he borrowed from Devi. Uh, you know, it's not just to look for Denna, but if he ran into her, great, right? On one such occasion, he found himself at the Aeolian having a drink with Deok after another unsuccessful attempt at finding his dream girl. It was then that Deok revealed to him that, you know what? He'd actually met Denna about 2 years prior. He's known Denna for that long. And at the time, had grown quite fond of her. But now it's kind of more like in the big brother sense. He's quite a bit older than Denna and Kvothe. He said that even back then, Denna was complex, restless. She had a lovely voice, light of foot, quick of tongue, men's adoration, and women's scorn in roughly equal amounts. She had a propensity to disappear, sometimes for just a span, sometimes for months on end. And she had no family or long-standing friends to depend on. For all that, Deok couldn't fault her. She had to look out for herself. And sometimes unpredictability is the best form of protection. Knowing this didn't erase the angst Kvothe felt towards Denna and, not being able to find her, but it did help salve things over a little bit. On his way back to the university from this night of drinking and reminiscing and talking with Deok, full of wine, full of thoughts of Denna, Kvothe didn't even notice he was being followed until it was too late, and two men grabbed Kvothe at knife point, dragging him into a dark alley. One urged the other to check the finder to ensure Kvothe was really their target. And as they did so, Kvothe created a distraction by dropping his half-full bottle of wine on the ground, shattering it, and then using sympathy to light the spilled wine on fire around their legs. He then, again thinking quickly, flung some highly combustible basal dust, we'll talk more about that in a second, at their eyes, also lighting it using sympathy. The men were left temporarily blinded by the basal, and believing Kvothe to be some sort of magical god who's just lighting things up at will, Kvothe plays on it, and he demands information in exchange for their lives. He found out they'd been paid to kill him by Ambrose, Kvothe automatically assumes, and that they were using a piece of his hair combined with the tool called a dowsing compass, the finder, to track him. It was only later that Kvothe, having made his escape from the two men, realized that he should have grabbed the dowsing compass before fleeing. Oh, crap. uh, to hopefully throw them off the scent of just tracking him down again. He pulls out a number of strands of his own hair and affixes them to leaves, which he then sets into the wind to blow in every direction and hopefully confuse his pursuers. Later in his room above anchors, as he sat exhausted, half drunk, aching from the burns on his legs, and with a fresh knife slice wound in his side from the knife that they'd held him up with, bye to another shirt, Kvothe. He remembers that a note had been stuck into the windowsill when he climbed in, and it was waiting for him there when he'd returned. The note was from, you guessed it, Denna. She'd come looking for him. It was sad to have missed him. She said she'd be at a certain inn and for him to call on her before the 23rd of the month. Fantastic. Oh, but it's the 28th. With everything that had been going on at the fishery and all that stuff, he hadn't even noticed that the note had been there for days, maybe even longer. He missed her completely. Kvothe, at this point in his evening, he didn't have the time nor the energy to worry about that right now. And as he set to cleaning his cut, he realized, oh crap, there were probably traces of his blood left on his assailant's dagger, which he also didn't get, and they could use that blood probably more effectively than the hair to track him still. So he packs up all his things at anchors, not knowing when it would be safe to return. He then found a small pot into which he stuffed his bloody shirt and then set afloat in the river, hopefully again to throw off his scent from the person who seemed to so desperately want him dead. And that's how the end of the chapter goes. What a night.
A great summary. That was a beast of a chapter to summarize with a lot going on.
Yeah.
So, so he misses his lunch date, Denna.
Mm-hmm.
Roughly 2 days later, she sees him with Fella. It was one-ish day later. She sees him with Fella, supposedly goes out the door. 2 span later is when this chapter takes place. And we think she wrote this letter, a few days maybe after seeing him at the Olean with Fella. So that letter's been sitting there for, a span is 11 days. It's been sitting there for 15 days, 2 to 3 weeks.
2 weeks.
It's just been sitting there. And he totally missed his opportunity. She's got some really tongue-in-cheek messaging in her response there.
Yeah.
In the wrong chapter. That's not helpful. About the quality of his bed linens, about seeing that he's not downstairs or peacefully abed, and wondering what the hell he's doing late at night when she came by to drop the letter off, insinuating some things. It's a nice sounding letter, but there's some stuff in it.
Yeah, some between the lines.
That is, a little bit. She drops the information about meeting this other guy.
Oh, yeah. That to me was like, she sees him with Fela. Well, guess what?
Yeah,
I shouldn't be so dismissive.
She doesn't say anything about the white hair, right? Like Diok did. He's a singular fellow. He's quite interesting. I did it because I was denied your company. There's some stuff in there that's like, this isn't going to go so well. And Kvothe admits it after reading. He's like, I don't know what to do with this. It's too much.
It was far too much for me to deal with at the moment.
Yeah, right. So when I said earlier, it might have affected things with Denna, that shotgun on the wall, as much as anything.
Sure.
I guess maybe that's partially what I meant, but I'm not sure if Kvothe sees all that in that letter, or if he's just like, oh, she's thinking about me and how nice, and she didn't mention the other girl, so maybe she didn't even see it or doesn't care, but I notice it.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably not good.
Even the if I could be saucy for a moment, I did not notice the disgraceful condition of your bed linens.
Yes. So good.
Like
I mean,
hopping
it's
in
also
bed to wait for him. No, she wouldn't be that forward, I feel like. But I don't
no.
know. There's
But I feel like that is kind of like the way they would joke together.
sure. It is
But
very, yeah, it's on par with their character and
so I
their
don't, yeah, I don't know how
relationship.
angry she really is, but
Right.
it's very tongue in cheek. Like, hey, I don't know what's happening, so I'm going to joke about it with you,
Sure.
and you're going to know it. I still
Hmm.
don't know if he knows it, but I thought it was very cleverly done by Pat. The way he's fashioned this note for Denna.
Yeah, yeah. It is a really cool note by her, and it totally fits her personality and
Yes,
character.
absolutely.
Yeah. Your friend and apprentice housebreaker. It's great.
So after reading that and thinks about the blood, I don't know what he thinks. I guess gets a different read on these thugs than I got. I don't think they know how to build a dowsing compass for blood. I don't think they know how to replace hair with blood. I don't think they know what the fuck they're doing with the dowsing compass other than somebody gave it to him and said, follow where it points. So I don't think he's actually in any danger about the blood.
Sure.
Do you feel that way?
Oh, I had the same note early on in the chapter. He's like, "Oh, these guys are professionals."
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if he was trying to talk them up for the story, but I was like, you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the two lackeys in 101 Dalmatians that
Mm,
work for Cruella de Vil. That's
okay.
what it reminded me of. They're just like bickering with each other the whole time. They
Yeah.
can't get anything right. I think one's named Jasper
Yes.
and Horace, maybe.
Jasper and Horace. Yeah, that's
Is
right.
that
Yeah.
it? Is that
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
That's who it reminded me of. I was
That's
like,
good.
professionals. Okay. Yeah, maybe in the sense that they get paid for running errands for somebody, but these aren't
Yeah.
professional killers by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. There's the bumbling bad guy is kind of a common trope.
For
I
sure.
think I think so I think they should be taken seriously. I think they have calamitous intent. They're
Sure.
not they're gonna kill him. I believe
Yeah.
that. I don't think they're planning to take it easy on him or anything. But I don't think they're the most capable dudes. I don't know why, but I was reminded of the two. I don't even know if you've seen this movie. It's where I fell in love with Jennifer Connelly. Career Opportunities.
Nope. I
There's
remember you
two.
talking about seeing that movie, and yeah,
It's because I won't shut up about how much I love Jennifer Connelly. Point noted. I
something
won't.
grew 3 sizes after seeing that movie.
I will not bring it up again.
It's
Uh,
fine. I don't mind at all. It's a big part of you, Scad. I care about you.
Dermot Mulroney plays one of the thugs in that movie, and the
Mm.
other guy I think is lost to the sands of time. But they play two thugs who are, I think they mean what they're doing, but they're kind of bumbling and they argue all the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And one of them's shorter and one of them's taller, and I don't know, kind of reminded me of them.
Uh-huh.
But yes, very, very, very much. I think they mean bad, but they're not great at this.
Yeah.
I'm even more confused by this use of sympathy than I was the last one
Mm. Mm-hmm.
because usually you're binding one thing with another thing, right? Like they use the wax with the straw, right? He's trying to
Mm-hmm.
make the straw think it's the wax and make the wax or sorry the candle wick, sorry, not wax, the candle wick catch fire, right?
Right.
In
Yep.
that example from earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
In this one, his leg's on fire and he throws out this basal mineral, which, as far as my research could tell, does not exist in our world. It's something
It's
unique
a
to,
creation of this.
yeah,
Yeah.
which I love. I love that you can just take our science, add what he needs to be like, I need an element to do this. Ah, there it is. But I don't know what he's binding to the basal to make it catch fire.
Good point. Was he maybe holding a speck of it still in his hand?
And he like put it in the fire,
And it because it does
like
talk about how
touch
he
the fire with
reaches,
his
it does
hand.
talk about
Yeah,
how he reaches down, right?
yeah, that could be it.
To the fire at his side.
Yeah, yeah, that could be it.
But I don't think it specifically says, you know, holding a speck of the basal in between thumb and forefinger, I reach down to my burning leg.
Lowering one hand to the flames, licking at my leg, I focused my alar. A wide pool of burning brand winked out behind the two men, leaving the alley in pitch darkness. But there still wasn't enough heat.
So he drew the fire from the burning,
for energy.
from the wine that was burning as well as his leg.
I touched my bloody side, concentrated, and felt a terrible cold tear through me. So he again pulled it from his blood to get the energy, but he's still trying to convince the basal to be on fire.
Maybe that comes from touching his leg.
It must come from touching his leg, but he's trying to convince the basal it's his pant leg. I think you're right. I'm going to assume what you said is correct. He kept a piece and put it down there and tried to link them to the other pieces.
Yeah,
that would be a very easy binding. They're the same thing.
But right? This wasn't an easy binding, judging by the fact that the heat wasn't enough. Heat.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe he used his burning leg. So the burning leg was the straw in this case.
Yeah.
To the basal wax, right?
And
it was super like they're just not alike at all. So he has to have a lot of energy to do that.
Yeah.
But he used his leg because it's on fire. And he's like, basal, you are on fire like this leg.
You are a leg.
Yeah, you are a leg. Just like candle wax wick on a candle. Yeah. You are straw, right?
Yeah.
Or straw, you are candle. Yeah.
I think
we're getting this.
I think I'm buying your example.
Talking through it with you helps.
Yeah, based on how hard he says it is, I think I agree with you. Seems like he'd have been smarter to keep a piece in his hand. But then I guess like his hand might have exploded.
That's true.
The thing.
That's true. He's like, I need to use that fire over there.
Yeah. Interesting. I think we want to maybe talk about the murder attempt in more detail in Devi After Dark.
Yeah, there are some aspects to it that I think are better suited for that.
Okay. Can we talk about Denna a little bit?
I would love to.
We already have.
Mm-hmm.
We got an email from a blood writer today named Cheryl that was, or actually we didn't get the email today. I read it again today.
Yeah.
But talking about Denna and her experiences, and actually they were commenting that perhaps robbing her of some, I don't know about agency, but depth of character by, I had insinuated some things about her previously in Devi After Dark. But I think what we see in this scene is an explanation for Denna's behavior, which from Diok to Kvothe. And I don't know how you feel about it. It's an interesting scene to read to me because it's like a look behind the curtain that Rothfuss doesn't usually give you. All right, let's sit down and talk about who this character is and why they do what they do. Let's just lay it on the table for everyone to know. The reader, this is why Denna does what she does. I don't love it. I don't want him to tell me these things. I want to read what they're doing, and based on their decisions and their behaviors,
come to that conclusion.
Come to those conclusions, like Cheryl has, right? And like I had already as well. Like, it's just not my favorite. I don't want to be told who Denna is. I want to figure that out based on reading her. Right?
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
What do you think about that?
I don't think I was as affected by it in the sense of, I don't like that. But I see where you're coming from. I like the idea of Kvothe being forced to reckon with empathy.
Yes, for sure.
And for sure. And what you're saying is you would have loved to have seen him come to that moment a little more organically or on his own without just having it spoon-fed to him from Daok.
Yes.
And to us as the readers.
Yeah, it's not really it's not a criticism of Denna's character or the reasons she does things, or
how it's presented.
it's how Pat has decided to present it to us
Sure.
in this, kind of spoon-fed manner, like you said. Yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe like as a narrator, I guess maybe Kvothe is admitting like it needed to be spoon-fed to him. He did not get it.
That's true.
Right. As a reader, I'm like, why? I don't need this conversation. I know this. I know all these things about Denna. I figured that out. She doesn't have a support mechanism at all, just like Kvothe doesn't. You'd think he'd see someone in a very similar situation to himself and recognize it already. Why does he need to be told this? And so maybe you just by sitting there and saying, yeah, and nodding at me, you've convinced me actually that Pat did it to show me that Kvothe doesn't have much empathy.
He really doesn't. And, whether it's right or wrong, by saying this, we're not saying Denna's bad, but to Deok's, still in a sense under her spell a little bit.
A little bit, maybe. Maybe.
Not in a maybe
Romantic
a romantical
way.
sense,
Yeah.
but she's very charming and she captivates him and in a way and everything. And but at the same time, in his mind, he's looking out for Kvothe by telling him these things with the end result of saying, like, just be careful. I don't want to see your heart get broken like many other hearts have been broken.
Yeah.
So just be careful, man. Yeah. So I think this is almost as much a character building moment for Deok as it is for Denna and Kvothe.
And to Deok's
in establishing who Deok is to Kvothe, as if it hasn't been done already.
To Deok's credit too, he doesn't really let Kvothe slide on it. He admonishes him for not figuring this out.
Yeah, like
he's like, "What do you think she does? You know what happens in these situations with women with no support network."
Yeah. Well, they've got women have all sorts of opportunities.
Yeah. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me, Kvothe? What do you say? It's a slice off the same loaf.
Yeah.
At one point, which is a good metaphor.
It is.
Anyway, yeah, I don't hate what I'm being told about Denna. I just don't love the mechanism it's being told.
Yeah, but that's fair.
But I've now come around on a little bit and to see that what Pat's trying to do is show us how dumb Kvothe is about this kind of stuff and lacks empathy. I know, reader, you all figured this out already. Kvothe needed it explained.
Right. And he had this moment with a mentor figure.
Yeah. And you're right. Deok got to shine a little bit and gave him some development of, he's thought this through. He's not just a doorman owner of a bar. He's got some brains up there doing some noodle work.
I've kind of been where you are before, buddy.
Yeah.
And this is, when I came out the other side, here's where I am now. And this is what I've learned. And here it is. Right.
You know what I'll say about Denna too, before we move on? And I think I agree. I think Deok, I think I agree with you. I think he's turning into a character that has just observed a lot and has some wisdom to share, right? And for whatever reason has decided he cares, about Kvothe and wants to protect him a little bit. On Denna, it is interesting, knowing what we're being told, beaten over the head with in this chapter about why she is the way she is and how, her freedom of movement is because of the reasons it is. It is interesting that she kind of seems to keep circling back in the same areas.
Yeah.
Why not go past Annalyn? Why not go out to wherever? What's keeping you kind of coming back to the university? Why do you go back out toward Annalyn again? Why then back to the university? Why, she's came from Tarbine, I guess, as part of that caravan. Like she's kind of staying in this area for maybe some reason. She's been traveling, a circuit for several years. It's interesting. Is she tethered somehow to this area?
Is she tethered? That's an interesting question. I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, if she had been there 2 years ago and it disappeared for a time and it come back and like he was saying.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
If, as Deok says, we can't begrudge her taking an opportunity that can pay her for a time to sing or to whatever to help a guy sell his wares or whatever, if that took her past Annalyn, took her 300 miles away, would she take it? That's kind of the question I'm asking. Right? Does she
Yeah.
does she want to be in this area for some reason?
Right.
Anyway,
That's a question that
will
is
probably never get answered
yeah.
and probably doesn't matter. But I think about them
I
sometimes.
think it probably does matter. But yeah. We'll be waiting on that one. I think it probably does matter.
Maybe we'll find out.
Can I tell you a quick tangent story that I was reminded
Yeah,
of
sure.
by this great line where Daok and Kvothe are talking about, and Kvothe said, "There's a sort of camaraderie that rarely exists except between men who have fought the same enemies and known the same women."
Mm-hmm.
I was at John Mayer concert
Okay.
just
Yes.
2 weeks ago, and John's opening act, his name's JP Sachs. I think you'd like him a lot. He's really good.
Mm-hmm.
But he's trying to include the crowd, in his set a little bit, be kind of interactive. So when he's doing his, he's the opener, so he plays for half an hour or whatever.
Yep.
And about halfway through his set, he goes, "Okay, everybody," and we're in the big Vivint arena, the big arena where the Utah Jazz play, listeners.
Mm-hmm.
Huge venue. And he goes, "Okay, I'm going to play you one of two songs. I'm going to give you the premise of both songs.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I give you the premise, by applause, we'll see which song you want to hear more." So it's song number one. And he goes on to explain how it's this song about how it's actually stuff I've thought about a lot too, as I've written music, is, that love can come and go in your life. And just because it ends, it doesn't mean that it didn't matter when it was happening, and some can leave this lasting impact on you and da 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 da. And it was really lovely how he explained it. I'm like, yeah, that would be interesting to hear that song. And I wonder what song two is going to be. And he goes, and song two is a letter I wrote to the new boyfriend of my ex-girlfriend. and that's all he said. And he goes, "Okay, who wants to hear song number one?
Everyone wanted to hear
Who
something.
wants to hear song number two?"
And he knew exactly how that was going to go. I
And
wonder if the first song even exists.
right.
He knows so strongly how that
He
vote was
goes,
going to
he goes, "I've asked that question at every show we've played so far, and I've never played song number one."
go.
And then he takes like a mild jab at John Mayer. Then he goes, "This shouldn't surprise me from an arena full of fans of someone who's had the types of relationships that John Mayer has had," or something like that.
That's funny.
Cast some shade. But anyways, that's it. And the song was lovely. It was nice. But yeah, the sort of
It was
camaraderie
nice.
that rarely exists between men. Yeah, it was kind of like
Mm-hmm.
almost like this conversation. Here's what I learned.
Yeah.
And I wish you all the best. Take care of her, type thing.
Uh-huh. That's good.
Yeah.
That's the kind of letter you write to the new boyfriend when you broke up amicably, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you've had some separation, some time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
A song about
separation, time, and maturity.
Yeah.
Not separation, time, and immaturity.
Right.
Or, yeah.
Anyways, that's it. That's my story. But
it's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good crowd manipulation. I like it. We haven't yet at all talked about the leaves and the wind.
Oh yeah, that happened.
And it did. And I definitely want to talk about it in Debbie After Dark a little bit too.
Oh.
But I guess the part that's notable here is just Elodin coming up to him, not acknowledging the fact that he's been stabbed.
He's
and
shirtless.
shirtless with blood all over his hands.
I had it in my summary, and then I cut it out of the summary because it has no bearing on anything
I don't
at
blame
this
you.
point.
Yeah, I cut out of my chapter summary where he's getting the cloak from Fela about how she talks to him about Elodin as well. It just there's nothing in there that seems to matter, but I wonder if it does a little bit.
Probably. Yeah.
And Mostly, yes, I just wanted to observe that Elodin, he seems willing or totally oblivious to things that most people would notice, or he's just willing to ignore it uh, for the more important things in the world. And I think there's just something about Elodin that is um, disaffected from everything else what everyone else is experiencing is not what he's really experiencing. He's seeing the world through different lenses.
Yeah.
And the fact that Kvothe is sitting there staring at the leaves moving in the wind means something to him that supersedes any of the other weird stuff that's going on.
Shirt,
None of it
seeping
matters.
wound. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
none of that other stuff matters. It's immaterial to like Kvothe's growth or even just how Elodin values Kvothe as a person. The fact that he found him here late at night watching these leaves says way more good things about how he thinks about him than the
He's like,
fact that he's bleeding to death.
bro,
And how did you get wounded? Yeah. Right? This is how they're relating.
yeah.
This is so we had the chapter with all of the women in his life, and then now a chapter with two mentors of his life, I guess.
That's true. There you go.
Who he looks up to for his skills with the ladies, and Elodin for his skill with names. Although I'm not sure he really looks up to Elodin. He kind of thinks he's crazy.
He wants to.
Yeah. Elodin says to him as he approaches, taking him totally off guard, he says, "You're up studying awfully late." Studying.
Yeah, the leaves.
Bleeding to death,
Yeah.
half naked, watching leaves is studying to Elodin to illustrate my point. Anyway, that's all. I just wanted to note it.
It's important to note that Elodin does appear in this block of chapters, and it has to be important.
Well,
but
on
that note,
I don't know. Do you have more for this chapter?
I don't.
Both lost another shirt. Yeah. I don't think I have more.
Yep. Another shirt down the drain. He did get some new shoes, though. It's just
yes.
All right. Shall we close this portion of the podcast then, Scad?
Yeah. Let's move it to the spoilery.
All right, let's do it. So join us next time, ye listeners avoiding spoilers, ye listeners who embrace the spoilers. Listen on, because here we go with Devi After Dark. Devi After Dark. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, do you want to start with something big and whittle our ways to something small?
Do you want to start with Coat means disaster? Because we haven't talked about that at all.
Yeah, I saved that for, we find out in this chapter that Coat means disaster.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It seems
we don't have
pretty
the
obvious.
word for word translation. Yeah.
Right. The phrase is, and I'll butcher it, I'm sure, for how it's supposed to sound in what I assume is Kaeldish, because that's what Gilvan is. Chan Vein Idankot. And Chan, we know from Abinthy earlier, not in Kaeldish, but in another language, Temic, he says. It's an ancient version of Tema. Chan means 7. So Chain means 7. So the phrase means, what was it? Expect bad luck every 7 years?
Yeah, every 7 years.
I might have screwed up the exact translation. It's something we should get right.
Expect disaster every 7 years.
Disaster every 7 years, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So we know that 7 in that sentence is the first one, Chan. Chan Vein seems like
Chandrian.
Yep, Chandrian, 7 Chandrian. So 7 years. So it seems like expect disaster every 7 years has been translated back to 7 years expect disaster. Right? And that Idan is maybe expect and Coat is disaster, is what we're kind of assuming. which is interesting. Did you had the same read?
Yeah, I mean, it makes narrative sense. Chan meaning seven. I mean, coat isn't going to mean expect it narratively, like making
Yeah,
sense for the book. It
right.
means disaster. And so that idea that he, with the tremendous guilt he feels at what happened, naming himself coat is not only, just close to Kvothe, which is what we'd imagined up until this point. It's like, oh, it's just a similar take on his name, but there's actually a pretty deep significance that belies kind of
Yeah.
where he's at emotionally and mentally.
Yeah. I'm interested in what you think that means. One real quick, just probably dumb observation about the way the words break down. Chan would be the first word in the sentence, capitalized, I suppose. Vayan is capitalized in the book. Um, that'd be years, we think, right? Chan
Mm-hmm.
Yayan, 7 years. A noun, and then Idan, which we think is probably expect, and then uh, disaster. This is the last word, coat, also capitalized, another noun. So I wondered if in this language nouns are capitalized and verbs are not, or something.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. Yeah.
it doesn't probably mean much of anything. But what do you? So it means a lot as to where he is and what he's coming from. What do you mean by that?
Well, just that idea that he's obviously fleeing slash uh, purposefully staying away or avoiding a past life, right? And we know we're getting filled in on what that past life is, but we know that there's some regret that goes along with it. Otherwise, why would he be fleeing from it? Why would he be hiding from it? And that he's having difficulty with that too. It's hard for him to just be an innkeeper. He eventually
Yeah.
takes the sword back out and hangs it up on the wall again. Bast is like, "What are you, WTF are you doing, man?
Hmm.
Like, what is going on here?" It's hard for him to do that. So I wonder if him giving himself the name, something he's going to hear all the time, the name disaster
Yeah.
is almost like a way of reminding himself,
Right.
like, don't fall back into those old ways, dude. Don't go back. Don't go back. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It, it's a he picked this name for himself, right? He's I don't know, he probably people don't address him that much given how kind of alone he is in his life, but yeah, hearing it over and over again might just be that constant reminder he thinks he needs to keep his pride in check. If his pride or his ego
There it
or
is. Pride in check. Well said.
whatever, is what caused him to go do the thing he did that he's recognizing is really, really bad and disastrous. Hearing disaster every time someone speaks to him might help keep
Yeah.
that pride in check and remind him not to go off half sure, cocksure,
you
whatever.
you put this in your notes about if the king killing is a result of heroism or a
Yeah,
result of a flaw or a mistake that he made. Could it be that the heroism was something that he knew was the heroic thing to do, but he's the tragic hero? Maybe it was something he didn't want to do, right? But he knew it was the right thing to do, and maybe his pride led to that. Any further thoughts on that?
yeah. I mean, I think. Well, yeah. One of the main reasons I can't wait is to for book three if we ever get it.
Not
When
if he
he,
keeps writing novellas.
rabble rouser. Uh, yeah. Is it a moment where we get Kvothe and we see him totally unmasked and undone by his pride and ego in an obvious way that we can see it's been undone, and he's just lashing out from it, and
Mm,
he's even as a storytelling mechanism that will be interesting to hear from his mouth, right,
yeah.
admitting to that will be interesting, or
Mm-hmm.
whether he thinks he's doing the right thing and actually thinking he's being heroic, and maybe there's some ego to that too, but he does actually think he's doing the right thing. He's not outwardly doing it out of pride. And it just ends up being a disaster because he's fooled by Denna or the Chandrian or Master Lauren or whoever it is
or
that ends up being,
or whoever. Yeah.
right, whoever's pulling these strings, that he just legitimately gets fooled or driven to it, and used as a tool by someone else, or whether it's an act he does fully aware of what he's doing, through a flaw in some way, right? Those are the thoughts, and I don't know that I have anything to expand on them with.
Yeah.
But
I like it.
I do hope Pat knows the answer already. Uh, but yeah, I can't wait to see.
Yep.
Names, back to the name
Okay.
thing. I mean, names are just so important in this book that why he chose that name, disaster, is interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking to me will cause you disaster. A warning to anybody that actually does speak this language to stay away. A code of some kind. Is it just the reminder, like we talked about? That's probably the explanation I like best that you came up with. Is it kind of, tongue in cheek? He had to pick a name, and so he picked one that's similar, close to his own name. But, we talk about naming. Maybe he thinks that's his own true name, right?
Yeah. He's just kind of self-deprecating move.
Yeah, this is my true name.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Mm, I like that too.
where do you
I
want to
don't
go
like it.
next?
Oh, let's talk about these assassins, if that's okay. What do you think?
Yeah,
Or at least the assassination attempt.
well, it's really common in stories like this to just take the narrator's opinion as gospel.
He thinks it's Ambrose, so it's Ambrose.
He says it immediately, almost,
Yeah.
right? He's like, "Oh, Ambrose finally came after me." We don't really have any evidence that it's Ambrose,
And as far
and
as I know, we don't get any.
not that I'm aware, not that I remember. Um, we do, we do know that he thinks Ambrose tried to kill him. He said that in an earlier chapter. He says, and it was when he was writing posting up all the jackass lyrics. He's like, and that led to Ambrose trying to kill me. Maybe he's talking about this event. Maybe he's talking about a different event in the future. We don't know. Ambrose does do something really bad to him later in this book.
Mm-hmm.
That is, or actually, is it in the second book? Oh, I think it's in this book. Um, with the plumb bob. Do you know anything about the plumb bob?
No, I'm excited to learn.
That must be about the second book then. I've forgotten. Anyway, we don't really have anything but his word to say that it was Ambrose, and there are reasons to believe it isn't Ambrose. One is the plumb
Yeah.
bob. So he goes from hire. The theory would be that Ambrose goes from hiring murderers to literally kill him, if you believe that's what they're about to do, and I do, to a plumb bob mechanism, which results in some really, really bad things happening to him later in the story, but is short of murder. It's more alike to what they've been doing to each other, which is, I'm going to embarrass this guy so bad and make him make mistakes enough that he might get expelled through his own actions. That's what the plumb bob effects are. But it's still short of murder. So why would he go from murder backward to embarrassment and,
Good
and
point.
being expelled?
Good
Right?
point.
He certainly has the means to hire assassins, and he certainly has, probably the connections if he can't make his own dowser, the connections to somebody that could.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's where his head is at. His head is at still, this is a conflict, but one that I want to embarrass him further and win the embarrassment war rather than have
I'm
him
gonna attack
murdered.
his reputation and
Right. So I'm not alone in these thoughts. They're not mine. They are, but they're also all over the internet. If you go to Reddit, lots of people have thoughts similar to this. So who did hire them? Do you have thoughts and suspicions on who you think did hire them then?
not clear ones, but leaning away from Ambrose as well.
Yeah.
Too little as I sat and analyzed and read too a little bit about other people's thoughts on uh, some of the little kind of throwaway things these guys said,
Yeah.
right? Maybe you did as well.
Hmm.
There's there is one part where he talks about one of the guys says to the others, if you stepped in glass, it's your own damn fault. And that's when he catches on fire.
Uh-huh.
That made me think about the fishery.
Mm.
And if maybe these guys had been part of
Oh.
some sort of sabotage of the bone tar,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
maybe. And I don't think these guys would think of this themselves. Or if they went into the fishery to try to confirm he was dead or he died in there or something and they stepped on some of the broken glass, hurt foot or something like that,
Uh-huh.
But the broken glass, 2 or 3 chapters after they're mentioning it, 2 or 3 chapters after broken glass was a very significant thing. Made
Yes.
me think of that.
Sure.
So wonder if that was one of the attempts or just to verify that Kvothe had died or something,
Yeah.
maybe they weren't in on the sabotage. The other one that was interesting to me was, and this led me away from Ambrose, I'm not having another cock up like in Annalyn.
Right.
Which is where Denna had been and where she was going when she and Kvothe parted ways.
Yep.
And the cock up they're talking about is in regards to identity. Like, we need to be sure this really is Kvothe so we don't have another cock up like in Annalyn.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So, small theory, and this one did come from, it's probably out there too, but it came from Matt's brain. This doesn't happen very often, so I'm going to call it out when I get it.
Okay.
I wonder if whoever hired these guys was like, Kvothe is going to be going on to Annalyn. Maybe they'd observed and like, he's not going to stay at the university. This girl he's with, he's going to go to Annalyn. So they go there to wait for him. He's with a girl. You just find this girl. He's with her. Kill her. Because we don't know whatever happened to Josen, right?
Mm-hmm.
The guy who attached himself to her.
Kill her or kill the man she's with.
Right. And so I think that these guys thinking, just find the guy, he's with a girl, kill the guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the cock up. They killed Josen.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh crap, that wasn't really him. He's still alive. He's down at the university. We need to get down there. And
so does that mean you think they got the compass after that mistake?
I think maybe so. It's like, we need to be sure that this is him, or they had the compass, but they didn't check it because they were like, that's obviously him because he's with the girl and that's the caravan he was traveling in.
Yep.
Blah, 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 blah. Kill him.
Yep.
Denna does not want to talk about what happened in Annalyn. She is kind of evasive anyways in private with, where she's been. But she says, they say, what happened in Annalyn anyway? She brushed nothing pleasant, she said, avoiding my eyes, but nothing unexpected either.
Yeah.
That could mean dozens of things.
Could. I mean, I would hope that she wouldn't think someone standing next to her would be murdered, but also she's gone through a lot.
Right.
But yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like that. If that's the case.
If that's the case, who was it? Right. Who's pulling the strings here?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's why I said I don't have anything specific, but I think it happened before he even knew before he'd even met Ambrose. I think it goes clear back to that caravan.
Yeah. Yeah. And so same kind of, I have read before we get to the candidates. I have also read, I didn't think of this one myself, but that actually Kvothe isn't even the target. The Denna is the target. And that they got the target and didn't get details about name and looks. They just got the hair, right? And killed Josen thinking it was correct. Then, because Kvothe has been hanging out with Denna, he actually has her hair on him, right? Like just from having it, right? And so now they find him. I don't know how the dowsing works. It seems like it would find the full head of Denna's hair rather than a single one on Cloak's
Right.
shoulder or something. And it has been 2 weeks, right, since that. So the odds of there being a hair just kind of on him is not high. But
Especially with how many shirts he's been changing lately.
he's had it on him for a while, and they've been
Maybe.
tailing him for a while, and now they're trying to just double check. There's a lot we don't know here, right?
Right.
I think the Denna thing is slim, right? I think Kvothe is probably the target.
That's an interesting take,
But
though.
yeah, it would be an interesting twist for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to what you said, I'm with you. I think this started before Ambrose. I feel like it came from Tarbine, and then your candidates get kind of slim. There was a big post by somebody kind of laying some of this stuff out, that it wasn't Ambrose and saying that it was Pike. A billion people disagreed because Pike doesn't have the means to do something like this. Do you remember
Right.
Pike, the street urchin kid that he had the
Yeah.
kind of the war with? But I mean, that guy, he didn't have any means or
That we
skills
know
to
of.
accomplish any of this. To hire,
Yeah.
I mean, it costs money to hire somebody to murder people,
Well,
and
even
it
the
certainly
finder
costs,
tool.
and to do the compass would cost tons of money too. So we don't think that makes much sense. To me, then there's really two kind of possibilities, and there's some variability in them, but like they are the church, right? That the church um, through questioning uh, Scarpy, got information about Kvothe. Scarpy, I think we covered it when we covered this chapter, but Scarpy knew who Kvothe was. He
Mm-hmm.
used his first name without ever talking to him before, without
Right.
knowing anything about him. He just knew who he was.
Yeah.
So
Good
Scarpy knew
callback.
about him.
Yeah.
So if the church, I wouldn't think Scarpy would be the type to kind of fall under questioning, right? To give information up. But in the first chapter, Scarpy meets Kvothe. He does tap his hand on Kvothe's shoulder. He could
Mm-hmm.
have actually collected a piece of hair for just this purpose, right?
Wow.
And the church could have taken it from him. A
Mm-hmm.
more likely, a more likely explanation is, and it's weird because Scarpy seemed to be really encouraging Kvothe, but a more likely explanation is that Scarpy, in combination with Lauren and maybe other supposed Amir, right? Like a lot of people think Lauren and
Yeah.
Scarpy are both Amir as well as the Chronicler, frankly. Um, maybe they still got the hair, and that's how Chronicle really found him, right? But that the Amir are trying to silence Kvothe, right? Which Lauren maybe would have a hard time killing him right out in the open in the university,
Right.
but with the hair and with Scarpy, they can create a compass. They can have the assassins take care of this to silence him. Then Kvothe shows up. Then Kvothe shows up at the door, and Lauren has that whole thing during admissions about, oh, you're both Arledin's son? Like thinking, I thought I had that guy killed.
Son of
Right? Like, and
freaking
then,
Horace and Jasper.
yeah. Uh,
That's
so
intriguing, man. That's intriguing.
the motive is still the question, right? Like,
Right.
why do the Amir exactly want him dead? Um, why would Scarpy interact with Kvothe at all if they just want him dead? There's
The
all sorts of
Admir one
things that
is
make that,
intriguing.
yeah, there's also things that make it thin. But that's kind of, where my head's at. There are people also that think the Chandrian are doing it. Um, the most compelling thing I read was that, you know, they left that campfire. They had to leave early because the dancers and the lightning and all the things supposedly were coming, the things that the Chandrian are afraid of. They had to leave, right? And so they knew that they left that dangling loose end.
Right.
But then Kvothe doesn't fucking show up anywhere. He's in the forest for months, all by himself, with nobody to see him. Chandrian can't find him. Then he's on the streets of Tarbine. Nobody knows him. Nobody's using his name. He's not drawing attention to himself. So they don't know at all where he is. Then all of a sudden he does show up at the university. They figure out that he's there, and so they try to have him killed. Right? That's kind of the last semi-reasonable explanation that I've read, that they can't operate out in the open at the university, but they could have him killed.
Right. Yeah.
Loose end.
Loose end.
They don't want their story, being out there.
And I suppose that whole idea of aniline and the cock up there could still work with that.
It works. I don't think it works as well with the Chandrian.
No,
I think it works fine with the Scarpy Lauren or the priest's
Lauren.
suggestion
Mm-hmm.
because they think they it still does presume that his hair gets somehow on Joseph or on Denna, right?
Right.
Which I suppose is possible. Um,
Definitely.
and then regarding the what was it? Said about animal. Oh, the only other thing I've seen is that when they talk about the cock up, I have heard people say, "Well, they're criminals. They're just talking about a different job.
It could just be anything.
I don't want
But
another." Remember that time we tried to rob the fucking diamonds and you screwed up? Well, I'm not having that happen again. Right? It doesn't seem
yeah,
like it. It feels like they're connecting them, but I have seen people explain that away that way.
Rothfuss is such a careful writer that
Yeah, it
I don't
feels
know.
like he's connecting them.
Just like George, I feel like
Yeah,
yeah, when you're talking about this stuff so close together and everything, that there's something there. There's
yeah, I
clues.
agree. I agree.
I don't-
So based on all that stuff together, my theory at the moment is Scarpy, Lauren, Amir.
I like the Lauren
But
Amir one. Yeah, that's interesting. Cool, man. Cool. Do you think the blue tar container was sabotaged? Or do you think it really was just freak accident?
yeah, I don't think it was sabotaged. I mean, until you brought it up, I never even thought about it.
There's cleaner ways to kill somebody. If
Yeah, and they
the
would have
question would be
potentially
like,
killed lots of
why
people
sabotage it?
too,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
That's like
But
terrorist act type stuff,
yes, right,
not just kill Kvothe.
right.
So yeah. All right. What
It also
else?
it also does suppose a level of knowledge and intellect from Horace and Jasper that I'm not sure they possess.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Yeah. I kind of walked that back and like maybe they went to the fishery to see if he was dead.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
if he was dead to confirm
yeah,
it. Yeah, yeah.
right. Mm-hmm.
The only other thing, maybe before we go, it's very late. I don't know how long we've been recording, but it feels like a good long one. Uh, I just wanted to talk about the name of the wind real quick.
Mm.
Uh, so Quoth calls the wind later in this very book. He calls it on Ambrose and breaks his arm and knocks him to the ground. And is then nearly expelled and whipped again and stuff. Um, I think this scene is where he learns the wind's name.
Hmm.
Um, there's something about being like delirious like he was from like the loss of blood and the fatigue and everything, where you look at things almost like Willem with the sailboat in Mallrats, right? Like you just gotta be so tired, right? That like eventually you just get it, right? And he's just kind of watching it and even notes that like he's become kind of not as aware and it's just kind of swirling
Got to
patterns
get
and
out of
he
your own head.
yes
Kind
to
of.
really see the patterns and that now he's seeing patterns within patterns and then Illodan walks up to him and talks to him about the name of that square and that it's called the what is it the Chamber of the Wind or
Yeah.
whatever it was. He gives him a name in a different language for wind, right? And I think in Quoth's somewhat not woken mind because he's just out of it. He's learning it and getting it, and then it just takes his woken mind a minute to process and realize he has it. That's my theory, and I don't have any evidence other than I don't know. I like it.
I like it too. It seems very poignant just with that idea of Quoth, connecting himself to the wind in
Yeah.
the sense of the hair on the leaves, setting it free in the
Mm-hmm.
wind to blow where it will. It seems very poignant and significant. So, and again, Rothfuss is a careful writer. I don't see him just throwing in this random scene with Elodin just to make us
It'd
giggle.
be nothing.
Like
Yeah.
there's something there. Doesn't work
Yeah.
for a summary of a chapter, but in terms of story, it works. So, or it will work. There will be a payoff for it, I'm sure. And I like that. Yeah. Now, he doesn't realize he's learned the name of the wind,
No.
maybe in this moment.
Yeah.
But upon reflection or whatever.
Yeah. There's a whole somewhat related, somewhat unrelated, I guess, to this exact discussion, but there's a whole post, and I should get it out there somewhere. There's a whole post about the fact that the way they use it, that Pat uses italics in these books, you can tell which names Kvothe, who is telling the story now, knows.
Mm.
If the word is in italics and it's, a weird looking word, he knows it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not in italics, he doesn't know it. He's the one telling the story using the real word because he knows it, right? Telling it to us. But when Chronicle writes it down, he would just write wind, not Airliftsidai, which is the real name of the wind, right?
Wow.
It's a really cool page. I should send it to you at least so you know what I'm talking about. But it's a really cool theory that the guy kind of walks through a bunch of textual evidence and outlines exactly which names both knows.
We should attach it to the announcement of this episode.
Yeah, sure.
Pull it up. Yeah. Link to it in Twitter and on our socials. So that's interesting. Super fascinating. Wow. Kudos to the people that really dive into this book.
Man. No
Goodness
kidding.
gracious.
Someday when I've read these books 2 or 3 more times, maybe I'll feel confident enough to go down that way. Instead, we'll just talk about it for 3 hours at a time.
No, these people are the Daok to our Kvothe. They spoon feed it to us. And
that's right.
We stand on their shoulders.
Yeah, that's right.
We had some stuff here about Denna's patron, but I don't know that I've got the energy for it, and it might be better suited to future chapters.
We'll have lots to talk about Denna's patron later.
Yeah, so I think I'm good.
I'm good too.
Khalasar, you good? You okay if we end this thing? All right, I think they're all right with it. So shall we sign off?
Let's do it.
This is Matt signing off, saying, if you find yourself having a tough time with Name of the Wind, just think of it as a young adult romance novel.
And I'm going to say, if you are having trouble wooing a partner, try having a voice like a thunderstorm and hands that know every secret hidden deep beneath the cool, dark earth. And if that fails, tell them they don't have the hands of a maiden. And that should do it.
That should just is like surefire.
You'll get a partner immediately.
No questions asked. This is foolproof. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thanks.
Good day, Scad. Good day, Khalasar. I'm excited to be back with this one. This episode's going to cover chapters 6 or
61.
No, sorry,
61.
This episode will cover chapters 61 through 69. That's Spark through Wind or Women's Fancy.
That's also wrong. It's 65 through 69.
Yep. This episode will cover chapter 65. Okay, that's going to go in the outtake reel. All right. And I'm going to start over and do another one.
Do you want me to just go from the very tip top?
Nah. Okay. Your intro was great.